Hello and welcome. So this is Chaos Corvinus and this is my YouTube channel. So as you've probably noticed, this is probably one of the few videos that I'm going to make which has a video on it, and this one's going to be about DAZ Studio. Now the reason why I have these videos, I don't really do many how to do videos because obviously that kind of information is already on the internet to be seen. These videos I do to emphasize or highlight things that are slightly different and that are done more to the way that I do things rather than generic processes and ways of making a software work, which there is plenty of good videos on YouTube, plenty of other channels you can see for that kind of information. So all I do really is summaries of key points of these particular softwares as I'm going across them, and it's kind of my diary that I'm doing to make sure that I cover all the things I've seen before when I'm using them. So I've got like information about them, so how to do these things again in the future if I need to as well. So it's kind of a remembering thing as well. So that's what these videos are really about. If you hear the audio, it's just so then I can reference things and point out things to you more easier where things might get slightly more complicated. So DAZ Studio, obviously, there's a lot of stuff you can do, and it's unlike Movie Storm where it's just very one way and doesn't really have much customization. DAZ Studio does need another video explaining how things are done in more detail. So I'm just opening up DAZ Studio as we're speaking and just loading it up just so I can show you really how things work inside of it. So rather than annotating things and putting subtitles and explaining things that way, DAZ Studio is a lot of stuff involved in it. I'm trying to avoid a how-to guide here, so I think the best way of doing it is just to show you in principle of the things that can be created in there and just quickly explain how it will work as I'm going along. So the first thing you can do in DAZ Studio is, as you're already aware by watching the other videos, is you can put in a character and you can put clothing and hair on them. Now, as you know, in DAZ Studio, well, you might not know it, but when you put a DAZ Studio character in from these figures here, so say if you go into Genesis 8 female, basically what happens is it doesn't actually put in any clothing on the character, so the character comes in fully nude and basically you have to equip them with clothing and hair. So, for YouTube purposes, it needs to be obviously put onto the video as well. So basically when I'm doing the videos, I will be in DAZ Studio. There is a neat trick you can do. If you go over here, if you click on this, you can click on solid bounding box. This makes the character look robotic and not like a human, but it's fine for what we want to do, so we can get the character in, we can put the clothing on and the hair, and then we can put it back onto the normal mode that we want to put it into. So I'm just going to put in a female character first, so Genesis 8 female. Okay, double click on the actual icon, and then we just wait a few moments for it to come in. Right, now once the character's inside of DAZ Studio, so I've got to, make sure you're on the Scene tab. Right, so when you're inside of DAZ Studio, make sure you're on the Scene tab, and once you're in there, make sure you're on Genesis 8 female. And once that's selected, that's all good to go. If it's not selected, by the way, it will be grayed out like that, and that will mean that if you put any clothing on or hair on the character, it will come in as a separate entity. Let me show you what I mean by that. So if I go into the wardrobe where the clothing's found, as you can see, it won't even recognize what kind of character it is for. So you'd have to go through and find the ones that are for Genesis 8, like for example this one. And even after you found the character does actually exist and it's part of that character, another problem that you get is it comes in separate from the Genesis 8 female. Now when you're using DAZ Studio, you have to make sure that the clothing and the hair all link up with the parents, and the parent is the character that you're creating, and in this case the parent is Genesis 8 female. So what you want to do is you want to make the clothing attach onto the Genesis 8 female. Now there's two ways of doing it. If you put it in like this, you can either left click it, so make sure it's selected with the yellow there, and then drag it onto the gender-state female, and that will parent it onto the character for you. Say if you haven't done that though, say if you want to do another way, so deselect that, and you've put in the character clothing and you say, oh no, that's not quite right, I want to put it on the character, so you have to right click on it. This is a different way of doing it. Then you click on here where it says change the name of the clothing, and it says parents, okay? And then you go right to the top here. These are all the bones and joints of the character that we need to think about, but we just want to put it onto the main character, and the main character we want to make it the parents, and so in this case it's gender-state female. Okay, so just click on that and click accept, and now that becomes the parents of the clothing. So the clothing is now part of gender-state female. So when the character moves, the actual clothing moves with them as well, and that's what you want to do. Okay, so just get rid of that just now, and we also want to make sure, I'm going to do it now the way it's supposed to do it, so by clicking on that, make sure it's selected, and then click on the dress. Okay, and now always make sure it's selected on the scene tab. Just to give it more space, it's just this one here, right? So make sure that is selected, and make sure the gender-state female is selected with a nice yellow box surrounding it as well. Okay, now we just want to put in the hair now, and when you put in the hair, same principle again, make sure it's selected, and we're just going to go for this one here. Right, so just pop in this hair. Okay, so now we've got the hair and the clothing on, we can go into something like texture shaded mode. This gives us a very quick idea what the character looks like. It's not a full idea, but it gives us a quick idea of what kind of character we're getting at here. Okay, so there we go. It looks like very low detail. If you want more high quality, you can go into filament PBR. Okay, so that's the character, and if you want even more quality, you can go into NVIDIA. I won't show you that just at the moment because it does tend to crash my computer. But what I'm going to do now is just keep it on this. And what you want to do now is we've got the character inside the DAZ Studio. Again, I didn't explain it before, I was showing it to you, sorry, but smart contents. Whenever you want to add anything in, you just click on this. Smart content, and you click on the icon that you want to go for the hair or whatever it is, and then you just select from the list that appears and double click the actual hairstyle you want, and that's literally all you do. And same for clothing as well. You go into the wardrobe section, you click on the clothing you want to click on the icon, double click it, making sure gender-state female is selected, and it puts it on for you. And once that's done, once you've got all the clothing and the hair sorted out, that's the first step. What you want to do now with this is you want to give it a bit of different color or bits of text, different appearance to it. So what you can do here is you can go into the, make sure that so you go down here and you want to go into the surfaces tab. And once you're in the surfaces tab, you want to make sure you open up these boxes here by dragging them along like so, until you can just get a bit more space here, and then you drag up this, and just create a bit of space so you can see what the icons are called. Now we want to go into the gender-state female, so you want to change the hair first, so you want to go into the hair first, so that's the hair, right? And then what you want to do now is, the hair's quite simple, the reason being is because it's already got a map associated with it, so you don't have to go into the separate icons or anything like that. Different for the clothing though, but we'll do that when we get to it. Well, different for the face, sorry. So when you're here on the hair, we just go onto here, and you can see it's got a texture map already associated with it. That's the location of the path that's on. And it's called basically APR JOCE underscore TXT brown. Okay, it will also show the name when you left click on it, and it will show the name here. Okay, and now all you have to do with that name is you need to copy and paste it. So if you click on browse, it will automatically put you into the correct location. You click on this folder location here, icon, and it will give you the path. And then you can just copy that. So you can press Ctrl C or right click copy. And what you want to do now is open a separate notepad file for this, and you want to paste it in. And that's the full path of where the hair is located, and we'll need that in a moment, and I'll show you why you need it as well. So So that's what we've created there. We've got the path in Notepad. Okay, so there it is. Right, so now what we want to do is I want to change the base color of the hair. Only the base color. Okay, now what you'll notice here, well, you probably won't notice it too much because it's low quality. If you change this slider here, just give it any color for now. Right, white's the best anyway. And then if we just change this, so the way of changing it is whenever you see this, the base color, you hover over it until you see two arrows, like that show left and right. And then if you click left and right, you will get very subtle changes to the color, as you can see, which is fine because it's like almost fine-tuning the color. That's okay, right? But this is where the problem occurs. If you click on it and you change the color, at the moment everything looks okay, right? See if you can black, right? Again, everything seems okay. If I go into filament PBR, you know, it doesn't look too bad at the moment. If I go into NVIDIA iRay, right, and again you can't really see that color of the hair messing up too much because the reason is because it's such a high quality hair, and so we can't really tell with this type of hair because it's so high quality, right? But what effectively you're doing here, by changing the base color, you're actually reducing the quality of the hair. Now if you look very closely here, can you see the quality in that hair there? And can you see what happens when you change it to black? Can you see how you've lost that contrast of texture? And if you go into the filament PBR or the NVIDIA iRay, okay, so let's try that again then. So when I put the black color in for the hair, to see the detail that's been lost in NVIDIA iRay, this is probably the few times I'll be using NVIDIA iRay because it crashes my computer way too often. Right, now you can see that it's not too bad, you know, on NVIDIA iRay it looks fine. It's everything's looking as expected almost. But this is because it's such a high quality hair. Now if you didn't have such a high quality hair, you would notice that the detail is lost almost immediately. Because of the detail in his hair though, it's very difficult for it to lose the quality, and so you can't really tell what's really going on. So it looks okay in this occasion, but this is what the base colour does. It kind of reduces the colour. It kind of reduces the texture colour as it kind of you know, loses that quality. So that's basically what it does. It doesn't quite look as intended unless you have it on white. White is the pure colour of the hair. It's not the actual colour of the hair, but it's the actual pure colour of the texture, which means that all the fine details of the hair, you can see it even in texture shaded mode. And that's the difference. It's a bit difficult to explain, but it kind of shows all the flakes of all the hair and all the patterns, all the complex modifications that have been particles of the hair and everything else all show under the pure colour of white. If you change it to black, however, you lose a lot of that fine quality, and it's much more difficult to see as well, whilst the white emits the colour much more effectively. Okay, now what we're going to do then is we're going to change the colour of that hair, but we're not going to change it in that way. We're going to change it using Photoshop instead, and I'll show you why we do this. So if I just open up a notepad here, which has got my file path in there again, and I just copy this and paste it into here, which is my folder manager, my folder options, right click and paste it. Right, so in here we just simply find the file. So the file we want to find is APR JOCE texture brown. So texture brown. There it is. Right, and then what we do with that is we just right click on it and click on open with, and we open this up in Photoshop. And there's the hair. A few things to note here. We need to click on that selection tool and the actual layer it's on. Don't double click, just single click on it. It's different on varying versions of Photoshop. The interface may not look like this for you. The important thing is make sure you've got the selection tool on and that you're on the background layer. And all you do then is you go into image adjustments. This may be different again to yourself, and what you're looking for is something called hue and saturation. And what I'm going to do first is just show you what happens when I change that to a color black, which may be difficult to demonstrate here. Just yes, that's looking quite black color to me. Right, okay. So if I just save that very quickly. Okay, what I do now is I look for the hair that I've already created, which is the brown one. And then all we do is we put the Z at the end of it to signify it's a different file. And we click on save. I'm going to replace the one I've already got. It's already open, sorry. I've already got these open from the previous time before it crashed. Right, okay, let me try that again. So Control S. Right, so let me just do that again, sorry. Because I overwritten the original file, which is not what I want to do. Right, so I want to keep that file as it is. Image adjustments, hue saturation, and just make it black again. Right, and then all we want to do is we want to go into File, Save As, and we want to just put the Z at the end of it. Right, it says it already exists, overwrite, and there we go. Right, so that's overwritten now. And if I go into Daz Studio, let's just compare that to what we had before. So if I just go into that black hair that I've just created, there it is. There we go. And you can see the strands of hair are actually still there, right? Say for example, if I put that hair back in, right, so that's the one that we want. That was before. Okay, and if I just change that to black on here, okay, I know it's not that noticeable, but right, so that's what it looks like. You can see less flakes on that. If I just change that to white again, and if I just put it back onto the actual file that we had before, yeah, it's very difficult to tell, obviously, because but basically that's the way we want to do it using Photoshop to avoid any kind of loss of color in the hair or quality or anything like that, because white is always the true reflection of the actual color of the hair. So that's just the way I do it. I don't know if you always need to do it that way, but I've noticed that doing it that way definitely gives me more reliable results. On this occasion, you can't really tell. It's very, very subtle. It's a very difficult one to tell really with. Let me just put in the other one again. Angle and everything right to see really what's going on here. Yeah, you can't really tell. Okay, so just leave that as it is for now, but just bear in mind, you always want to try and make sure that... So the white basically means that it's the best quality for the texture that we have available for the hair. Right, so once that's been done, I've showed you how to do it in the Photoshop now. So that's the base color. We always change it from Photoshop to give us the best possible output, and that's the same as well for the clothing and the skin color tone of the actual character as well. So if you want to change the skin color or tone of the character, all you do is you drag this out a bit more so you can see what's going on. And again, just make a bit of space here, and then we just click on the Genesis 8 female character, and then we just click on the, well, it says the base color, but as you can see, it's got no texture map next to it, so that means it doesn't know which one it's trying to use. So if you open this up here, we need to go to surfaces, and then we need to find what we want to put the actual texture on. So in this case, we want to put it onto the face, right? So we have to click on the face, and then I'm just going to make it so you can see what's going on here a bit more. Yeah, so you click on the face, and then you click on the base color, and then we need to find where this texture is. Now, at the moment it's showing there, that's the actual map. So again, we click on Browse, and again, we copy this folder location, and paste it into Notepad. Right, so we copy and paste straight into Notepad. I'm not going to overwrite the existing path one I had there before, and just copy it again, and then we just pop it into here, into our file manager of your choice that you're using, and then just paste it in, and we're good to go. And then we want to look for the actual file name, which is Genesis 8 Base Facemap D1001. I already have a Z file for this, I'm going to delete it before it causes any other confusion. Right, so that's the one we want to use, and then all we do, D means basically diffuse, so that's just a way of differentiating it. I think the B means bump map, but I'm not too sure, and the S usually means specular map. But again, the abbreviations can differ, but D usually I would say on this occasion would be the diffuse map. So what we need to do then, which is basically the base color, right? So we need to click on Open With and Edit with Photoshop. Right, here we go. So make sure the selection tool is active and the background layer is also selected. Then all we do is we go into Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation, and again all we do is we just literally change the color of the skin. So I'm just going to make it look a bit more yellowy brown kind of color, and just stick it somewhere around there. The saturation makes the color more intense, as you can see. We just wanted to make it something like that, and a bit more darker, not too dark though, something like that might do. Actually no, something like that, okay. And then just click on OK once you're happy with that again, and just save that out from Photoshop. So save, and at the end of that just put in the Z just to show its difference, okay. And then just save it. And that's basically all you do. And then you just go into here, and again on the face you select the base map, and you click on Browse, and then you just open. And there we have it. The face has changed already, as you can see. Right, so there's the face. It looks natural, okay? Now, one thing you will notice here, if you don't change the face in that way, you will be creating a face mask. And let me just show you what I mean by that. So and there we go, right? So that's what it looks like at the moment. It looks like a horrid face mask. Okay, now if I just put this back on, and this is why it's very important that you change it through the Photoshop method rather than changing the color from here, because look what happens here. You can see it very visibly on the face. Can't see it so much on the hair, but look at that. And what you've created there is like a mask, almost. You've got a green mask. It doesn't look like a skin color anymore. Okay, and that's one of the problems of changing the color from here. Right, so if I change that to a more obvious color, that looks horrific. Okay, it looks like someone's just plastered a mask on her face. I mean, it doesn't look like a natural skin color at all, and you can tell that quite easily. And if you go into filament PBR, it looks simply atrocious. It looks really bad. Yeah, it's not something you want to be using. So let's go back into texture shaded, and let's just put that back to white. And now you can clearly see here why this base color here is not a good idea to use, because if you choose black, for example, and look how awful that looks. That doesn't look like the colour of the skin. It looks like someone's just put a black mask on her face, and it looks really, really awful. Okay, it's just not what you want to get at. So let's just change that back into white. And this is a good demonstration actually of why you don't want to change the base colour from here. Okay, so that's why you need to use Photoshop at every single opportunity. Always, always Photoshop. And let me just, so let me just put that brown, that colour we had before, just back on. There it is. Right, so that's what we just created in Photoshop, and as you can see, although we changed the colour of the skin, that looks still like a natural skin colour. It doesn't look like a mask, it looks like a skin colour, and that's very, very important. So yes, so some colours of skin are a bit difficult to achieve through in DAZ Studio. What you may need to do is use the base colour setting in DAZ Studio very carefully, because you can achieve a more darker colour of skin just by changing this to a more grayer colour like that. So you can do things like that, but just be careful what colour you actually go, because that now looks a perfect skin colour for for certain skin types. So it's as far as you want to go. You can use it to get a bit more darker and a bit closer to the skin colour you want to. Just don't pick black though, because that will make it completely black, and don't pick any other different colours. Just pick either white or grey, and that can get you to look more like a black-like colour for you. So say for example, if I put in the mask I just created, or the change I made, and there we go. That's actually worked, and as you can see, that's much more subtle an effect. It doesn't look as bad as the other one did, to be honest with you. And if we change the colour, it's all about having subtle effect, because if you try to change the skin colour too much in Photoshop, again you get results that don't look right, and there we go. That looks quite nice now, and if I want to make it more blacker than that, I can go for dark grey, and there we go. Now that looks pretty good. Yeah, it looks much less like a mask. It looks almost like it does look like a natural skin colour there actually. That was actually quite impressive, that. And all we did was we just changed the, we just used it slightly, because getting some colours are a bit difficult to achieve in DAZ Studio. And then we just use it sparingly to get the kind of colour we want to get to. And that's not a bad job. If I change the lips to that colour, you'd see it's much more of a natural transition. So if I go into the lips, and then just put that back in. It's not changed. Right, let me just try that again. Oh, because I need to change the colour one here, don't I? Yeah. So if I just change that to dark grey, there we go. Now that looks really good. Yeah, that's starting to look like a proper character now. And if we just change the other parts of the body, we can get a full character out of that, looking not like a mask, looking more like a normal skin colour. So that's basically, it was a bit challenging really to explain how it worked, but that's probably the best way of explaining that and why we use the base colour from Photoshop. The only colours we use in here to get a contrasted skin colour is white, a bit darker whites, and grey, because anything else would mess up the colour completely, so I'll try and avoid using anything else other than them three colours. And once you've achieved that, you've got a nice look to the character, and you've got really something you want to do, then you can go ahead and start morphing and changing the actual properties of the character. So what you can do then is you can go into the scene again. So the morphing all happens actually in the parameters tab, and the shaping tab. So basically what we do is this is just about just changing and deforming the character really. So when you have it on genital state female, we just want to make sure we're on genital state female here as well at the top, right? Make sure everything else is, the arrow is closed off on them, and then we just go through the list and then we work through it one by one. So to give us a bit more space on the workspace, I'm just going to drag this out a bit, like so. Right, so then here we have all the settings. Right now, there's a lot of settings here, to be honest with you. There's a lot of things you can do. You can mess up characters completely by changing some of these settings. And this is changing the ears, it looks like. You can really go crazy with this. I'm just gonna show you a quick few things first. So when we're on the parameters tab, We want to mainly be focusing on things like the nose and the mouth and the eyes. We don't want to be looking at the morphs too much because that causes issues. Well, it doesn't cause issues, but basically what it means is it's, I just want to show you the basic settings first. So let me just skip past all the morphs. There's a ton of morphs, as you can see, and you get more of them as you purchase more products as well. So the more products you have, the more morphs you have as well at the same time. Right, so here we are. So here we can change the ears shape. Right, just the basic change to the ears. We can make it curl. We can give it a bit more width. We can even change the height of the ear as well. Okay, and then we can also change the angle if you don't like that too much, alright? That's just the ears, and then we have the brows. So here we have the brows, okay, just at the top, and if I just change this arch, you can see that it's changing the brows there. We can also change the depth of it. Just again, all this is done by just left clicking and dragging on these controls here. And again, brows height. Again, you can change that from here as well. And then you can change the forehead as well. So if you don't like the forehead, you can make it flatter. You can kind of indent it a bit more. And then say the cheeks, so we can add creases on. As you can see now, there's a bit of a crease now appearing on her cheeks now. And if you want to add a bit more depth in, you can go ahead and do that as well. And you can see you're adding a bit more definition to this character now, so they're becoming more, they've got more identity to them, if you like. And you can change the depth as well of the chin, sorry, and that changes that for you. And then you can change the chin scale. So again, you can make it out and come in a bit more. You can change the jaw as well if you wanted to do that, like so. There's plenty of settings you can do here, and that's just the basic modifications. Let's look at nose when we get there. Eyes. Let's look at the eyes first. So the eyes, you can change the height. You can see that. That's actually a morph because it's an Asian eye, but we'll do that anyway. Eyes distance is just the distance, obviously. You can go crazy with these settings sometimes. And then just looking for nose now. Here's the lips. So if you want to change the lips, you can do that with it. You can curve it as well. You can change the height of it. All the rest of the good stuff you can do with it. You can give it more depth like that, or less depth. Etc, etc. And then when you get to the actual nose, here we are. So you can change the nose, right? So there we go. We're adding a bit of angle to it there. You can also change the bridge of it as well. You can make it look more broken. You can make it like that, more fatter and thinner. You can also add more depth to it as well if you wanted to, for more detail. And that's basically the basic settings of the actual things going on there. So let's just look at some morphs now then. So the morphs, exactly the same thing, but we're going to go into shaping for it, just so we can demonstrate a bit more easier. So first we have something called the body morphs. Now basically that changes the character's appearance completely, as you can see there in the dress. Shape of the body is completely changing there, and if you did that again, the shape of the body completely changes. And again, you can keep doing this with the settings until you get something to more like what you want really from that. And after you're happy with that, that's like the body morphs in there in the actor category. We're not going to do too much on that, but you can also do the head then. And the head, again, you can make it look completely different. So we can change this and instantly we can start to see the changes going on there. And you can change this, and again, now that's quite a dramatic change going on now. It's looking more fatter, the face. It's forming into something completely different now. And this is what morphs do. So when you add more morphs on, they change the character in many, many ways. And obviously, if you do it too much, it can also mess up the character as well. So just do it sparingly. And also, you've got different heads here as well. You can switch between them if you want to do that. But yeah, it's all about just going through the settings, just left just left clicking with the mouse and just going up and down with the dials. There's nothing more than that for the morphs, and that's basically what they call morphs. And you can do that with lots of settings. So this is now the actual face itself. So you can just the face, not the actual head, just the face itself. And you can see there's quite a few things you can do with that as well. You can give it more of a shape if you wanted to, and even more of a shape than it's already got. Yeah, so you can really go crazy with that. Then there's the eyes, and again with the eyes, the morphs allow you to do this. You know, you can widen it up, you can make it look like another character, basically. Secure is a enemy character of some type, and you can make it look a bit more like it in that sense. So that's quite interesting. And then we have the ears. The ears, that's just the normal settings here for the ears. I don't think we have many morphs for that, to be honest with you. We need to go into the ears first. Here we are. Right, so yeah, it's not really many. Oh yeah, the secure ears, the enemy character again. And again, you can't really notice much difference there really at the moment going on. That's the ears. If we look at the, I think that's about it really. So you can go back on the head. You can add more lines to the actual head itself, if that's what you want to do. You can go ahead and do that. You can add face bumps as well, if that's something you want to do. Go ahead. And obviously you can change the head style as well to someone completely different like we've already seen. So that's basically morphing for you. That's basically how it works, and in essence, quite powerful, very powerful actually. There are a lot of settings you can do in there. So that's just the basic Genesis state character that we've looked at. Now let's try putting in something through face transfer. So to do that, I just need to show you some details about the actual thing first. So when you go into your browser and your search engine of your choice, I'm using DuckDuckGo at the moment. So you just go into DAZ Studio, and then you just go into it's called face transfer. Alright, and then you just go down, and then the one I'm using is called Face Transfer Unlimited, and it gives you really, it's not anywhere near as good as that, the quality. To be honest with you, I'd use it very sparingly. It does cost $49.95, just bear that in mind. That's the pricing at the moment. You can buy this if you want to. I've not really bought this. It's additional shapes and stuff if you want it. Gives you more detail to the faces if you want to give it more detail in that sense. It costs an extra $15.95 though, so just be wary of that. You may not want to get that. It depends on your mileage on how well you can use the face transfer, I guess. So that just shows you how to use face transfer. Now, to use face transfer, you need an image projection of a picture of a character, of a person, not a character, you know, a person actual. And the best way of doing that is by using a website called Generated Photo. It's the one I like using the most because it gives you royalty-free pictures you can use on anything you like, and there's no restricted license on it, so it's really quite interesting, that one. Human figures, high quality. That's basically what you expect from this. So when you go into the faces, and then you get the pictures, you can see just how high quality these pictures are. So say for example you pick one of them, say you want that one, and you just click on download, you obviously sign in, and you pay for each image individually on this. Just bear in mind, you can get a subscription if you want to, but I just get them individually because I don't really bother with a subscription with this. And once you have the image you want, I already have one that I have on generated photos, so I'm just going to get it from my file list in a moment. So what you do, face transfer usually ends up somewhere around here on DAZ Studio. I like to put it on this side so I can see it in full screen, and that's the picture I chose for my DAZ Studio. So all you do is you go into Generate Face, and then in the source image you just click on Browse, and then you just click on the location you saved it in, and click Open, and it just opens it for you. And then the image displays there, and you click on Generate. Now, one thing to bear in mind though, this tool only creates a Genesis 8 character. So if you want to create a different type of character, like a Genesis 8.1 or Genesis 3 character, this may not be the tool for you. But what you can do with this kind of tool is, as you can see, the character doesn't even quite look the same. There's differences there, there's definite differences there. The character doesn't look anywhere near the same as the character in a picture. This is something to note in when using face transfer. It doesn't give you an exact output, it tries to emulate it, but not very well on this occasion, as you can see. So let's just put in some hair, just so we can see what's really going on here now. If I go into Smart Content, make sure the Genesis 8 is selected in the scene, as usual, and then click on Hair. And let's just pick this hair, for example, and just pop it in. Right, just so we can see what's going on with the hair. Now again, if you go into face transfer, you can see it doesn't look right. It still doesn't look quite the right character, does it? So it's still not quite there yet. But the problem is that's what face transfer does. It gives you kind of an approximate of what the character looks like, and then you have to go ahead and change the eyes and the nose and the lips and whatnot to kind of match it to more of the picture itself. You'll never get an exact match because it's not really that close. It's pretty close, but the problem with face transfer is you'll notice the more characters you put in, the more they'll start looking like each other. And this is an issue with face transfer, it's nowhere near perfect. But anyway, let's look what you can do with it, because as before, I would always put the clothing on them. It's put clothing on for you automatically, but I just like to make sure the clothing is okay to use, so I'm just going to get rid of the clothing that's already there and just put in the dress. So I'm just going to go into the wardrobe section and just make sure you put this over the clothing already, and then you can safely delete the shorts and the bra, and there we go, we've got the dress on now, so that's no problem at all. Right, so that's perfect. Right, so we've got the clothing back on. Right, so that's the character put in now, and now that's just a Genesis 8 female character. Now you may not want a Genesis 8 female character, you might want the more advanced type, which is Genesis 8.1 female. And now there's one way that you can do this. The easiest way of doing it is just by saving this as a character preset. So I'm going to save it as two things though. I'm going to save it as a backup, and the backup is a scene subset or a scene. The scene is the whole entire scene with everything on it, including multiple characters and buildings and everything else on the whole entire scene. So that's what a scene is, a whole collection of everything in the studio. Scene subset, however, is a variation on the scene, so you can select which parts of the scene you want to come in individually. And that's kind of interesting because you can just put in a character in a building that's already there using a scene subset, and it will just come in as a separate entity onto the actual scene for you. And that's why scene subset's quite good. So if you click on scene subsets and then just click where you want to save it and just click on save, and then you can choose what you want to select. So I only want the character and the hair and the clothing, so that's fine this occasion, and just click accept. And there we go, it puts in just the character for you. And now, if I want to convert this to a Genesis 8.1 character, what we need to do, the first step, is to click on something called, here on Save As, we click on something called Character Presets. And I'm just going to overwrite the one that's already there. Test Preset, I'm going to call it, this occasion, right, so I'm just going to call it a different name. Test presets, right, so we just stick with the settings that are already there and click accept, and once that's done, after a while it will create a character with no clothing or no hair, so again a nude character. So again, you would want to be careful when using YouTube, so just be wary that you when you put the character back on in the character preset, when I'll show you how to do that it's actually in the other mode, not this mode it's in at the moment. Right, so the first thing to do though That's the character saving for us on the desktop. Okay, so if you want to find it, so I'm just going to open it on here and go into desktop, and then we look for news call test presets. Okay, right, so I'm just going to get rid of this character now, and I'm going to pop in a Genesis 8.1 female character instead. So the way of doing that is on your library of smart content. Just make sure you click on figures again, and then scroll down until you get Genesis 8, and then double click on the Genesis 8.1 basic female. But before you do that, make sure that you're in solid bounding box. Okay, because again it's going to create a character with no clothing or no hair. So put that on. Wait for it for a few moments, and then what we do then is we go into File. Well, there's two ways of doing it. Really only one way. So let me just go into the desktop here, and I'm just going to put in the test presets that we just created just then, not the image file, the DUF file. Pop this into here and onto the character, and this dialog will appear. Click on Standard Options, apply this character, and to keep the selected option is my preference. Click Accept, and that will put in our character that we just created from face transfer now, so changing from the basic character to the character we got on the picture. Okay, so after it's done, all we've got to do is put the clothing back on them, which I'll do in a moment. Right, and that should be our character on here. Now obviously we can't see at the moment what's gone on, but now let's put some clothing on so we can inspect what's actually going on here. So wardrobe, and that's the clothing I'm going to put on. Make sure it's Genesis 8.1 this time selected on the scene, and click on the dress again. And then we're just going to populate the hair as well, and then just pop in the hair that we used last time, this one, and again pop it onto the character. Right, and now we can safely go into the PBR view, and there's our character. Can you see now how it looks like it did before? But this time it's on a Genesis 8.1 female character, which means now that is actually part of the character. And once it's part of the Genesis 8.1 female character, we can then start to do different tweaks with it. So not different tweaks, but we can save this character out as a full character rather than having to do all that nuisance again. So we can do that in just a moment. Let's just make sure the hair and clothing is on them. Yep, that's all on there. So the way of doing that is full character again. We make sure it's select Genesis 8.1 female, go into File, Save As, and again Scene Subsets. And again, I'm going to call this test Genesis 8.1. Okay, so now that is just the character we want, nothing more. So, yep, I'm guessing that's everything we need in there. Okay, so just click Accept. Right, and that's the full Genesis 8.1 female character now, imported in and put into our character. There's only one other thing that I forgot to mention. I don't think we have textures on here. Let me just make sure. If I go into the Surfaces tab, and Genesis 8.1 female, and then we go into the Surfaces, and then we just look at any of these categories. Body. Right, so that's not saving. Okay, so one thing you want to notice, the textures haven't come out, so we need to make sure we do that before we forget. So when we do face transfer, we save these textures onto the actual character. So if you go to Save Face, right, it's because we forgot to do that, you see. So what we have to do now is we got to, that's why we're saving the actual file, so we can import back in if we need as well. So desktop, that's why you have to use this, and then I'm just going to go into test. Okay, and that will just put our character in. Oh. Okay, they actually came with the character as well. Oh yeah, that was a scene subset. That's probably why. Yeah, that was the scene subset. Okay, so the other one Oh yeah, that was the test preset, was the character preset, so we're safe. Yeah, we're okay with that one, right? What we need to do though, we need to make sure that we've got a Genesis 8 character there, right? When we do that, we need to save this face. That's what we forgot to do last time. We need to save it as something. I'm just going to call it test. Right, so since we already have the character already here, all we have to do is literally overwrite that character now. So if I just click on File, Save As, and I go into the actual scene subset and just save the test over what we've got, and that will just overwrite it with exactly the copy we have. Right, so now that's the character baked in with the textures and everything on them. If we just have a quick look, file name, so if I just click on that, it'll say test, right? So if I just click on any of these things, it will say test. Okay, and this should be true for all of them, apart from the eye sockets. The eye socket uses a normal Genesis 8 character set. Everything else should be the test textures. Okay, so just go through all of them and make sure it is test. Like so. Just left click and look where the tick is selected for the test, test, and test. And after you've verified that's all correct, that means that character now has got that on there. I should have already checked that before. Never mind. Let's put that character back in now. And that should be with the textures on them. And I'll just double check again. Okay, so that's the character with everything on them. And again, it's got the test texture baked on the character now, because that's not Genesis 8 character now. Well, it's Genesis 8 point, well, it's 8 at the moment, and what I mean is not a typical Genesis 8 character, it's a custom one that we created. Only the eye socket is using Genesis 8 stuff, everything else isn't. So that's perfect, and always just make sure that is the case, that it always uses the file name of what you've created rather than Genesis 8 default settings. Very, very important note. And that means you've successfully populated the textures onto the character. Okay, and once that's done, all you need to do then is just save the character out as a character preset like we did before. So we just go into character presets, and then we just overwrite what we already created, which was this one, test preset, save it, and accept it. Right, so again, just bear in mind this is a character with no clothing or hair on. So again, we'll have to, for YouTube purposes, just make sure that we hide away anything we don't want to see. So go into solid bounding box, and then what we need to do now is put in a Genesis 8.1 character. So we go into Smart Content again, and we go into Figures. There it is. Refine Genesis 8 female. Well, we look for 8.1 basic female this time. Put that in. Right, so that's Genesis 8.1 female character. All we do now is we put in our character preset that we've created. So we go into here and we go into test presets. Not the image file, the actual DUF file. Just make sure you select the DUF file and just overwrite anywhere on the character, and it will say this setting again, and just say apply the character to the currently selected figure again. And yep, so keep everything like it was last time I showed you. Right, so that's on here now for you. Character is on here now. All you do now is put the clothing on them. Make sure it's Genesis 8.1 female. Genesis 8.1 female is basically Genesis 8 just upgraded, so any Genesis 8 clothing will work on them. So that's not a problem, you can put a Genesis 8 clothing on them. And then the hair, again, same thing. Genesis 8.1 is upgraded to Genesis 8, so again you can populate it with a normal Genesis 8 hairstyle as well. Not a problem. Right, and once that's done, we can put it back into the texture shaded mode, for example. And there we go, there's our character like it was before from face transfer. Right, now again, obviously if you look at it, it doesn't nowhere near match that, but you know, that's as far as we could go with that. Right, so then what we need to do here is save this out as a Genesis 8.1 female character that's custom. And the way of doing that is by making sure firstly in surfaces that everything is using the test, or whatever you've called it, texture. If that satisfies, that means you're good to go. Apart from obviously the eye sockets. Yep. Yep. So far so good. Right, so that's all good. Oh, hang on. Yep, that's all good. So everything seems to be fine there. So once you've double checked all of that and you made sure that all the textures have actually been applied to the character from the custom character, then we can go ahead and finally save it as a proper character for Genesis 8.1. So you go into File, Save As, and this time we click Scene Subset. That will be both the character and the clothing and the hair all in one shot for you. And if you click yes, just sort of like when I've already done, and accept, and then there we go. That's our Genesis 8.1 female character put onto a Genesis 8.1 character. Genesis 8 from Genesis 8 character onto a Genesis 8.1 character. That's how to do it. And if you want to put it back on now, it's much more quicker because you can just go into your file here where you've saved it, and then find the Genesis 8.1 that you just created, the DUF file, and then just pop it back on, and that will be everything back on for you. And there we go, see? Everything's back on, no issues at all. And that's basically how you'd make a custom character and actually save it out and reuse it in DevStudio. And also you can use that to not only do Genesis 8.1, but you could even possibly do it to do a different type as well. So let's just give it an experiment. Let's try putting in something like a Genesis. Make sure you always go into solid bounding box when you do this. Now let's try to make a Genesis 3 female character then, and put that character preset onto them and see if we can work that. Right, so that's just the morphs that it's not agreeing with. I'm just going to put in some, well, the character preset first, so let's do that. So that's this one here. Same as usual, make sure Genesis 3 is selected and just click and drag it onto the head. Okay, and then here it will say unsupported. So this is a tricky bit. Right, so this. Right, I'll just click on accept for now. So I never really tried it with a Genesis 3 character, but it looks like it's completely messed up, isn't it? Right, okay. So yeah, it looks like you can't really do that with a Genesis 3 character. Unfortunately, it was an experiment just to see what happened. That's not going to work, but at least you can change Genesis 8 to Genesis 8.1 using that method. It's a useful trick to get that character in and sorted for you. So finally after doing all of that, let's just try and give it some morphing. So if I go into this one we just created just a moment ago and pop that back in, the Genesis 8.1 female, right? Everything populated. Okay, and if I just go back into texture shaded, right, now what we can do is we can also morph this character as well that we've customized. So we can, as before, we can go into shaping, so change the body for example. So everything, the dials and everything, they all work in the same kind of way. So again, you can just go through the dials, you can change this to your heart's content really. It's quite flexible as you can see. So yep, you can do that, and obviously you can also go into the parameters and change each individual setting. You can actually even search on here, not always very reliable though, but you can try typing in something like nose and it gets you to where the nose settings are, and so then you can kind of home in on it more. So if I just go into that, and you can see you can change your nose there. So it doesn't always work as easily like that. When it works, searching sometimes gets you the options a bit more quicker. And that's the bridge, and then you can make it look a bit more fatter or thinner or whatever you want to do with that. In a similar way, you can type in lips, but I don't think you'll get so successful with that one. Yeah, you can do some settings with the lips, as you can see. It's not giving you the full options, but as you can see, you can do a bit, and then because some of these settings come under other things as well, so that's why it's not always ideal doing it that way. And then here we are, when we got rid of it, so we can see lips here as well. So there we are. So that's the upper flutter, upper height. Now we can change that. We can change the volume as well of the lips. You know, there's all sorts of things we can do here. And then we can do a similar kind of thing with the eyes as well. So if you type in eyes, you will get something that's hopefully more ideal for the eyes. Yep, so we've got the eye heights, for example. There we go. We've got the eyes droop if you want to make it droop. You can change the distance of the eye as well, and so on and so forth, and you can keep going to your heart's content again, and morph as well. I would prefer to do all the morphing in shaping, because that's really where morphing happens. You can also do it in parameters, but it's easy to find in here as well. So, and then you go into head, and then you can just select the head. So say for example you want to change the head completely. You don't like that head, you want to make it look more like that character, for example. You can even do that. And as you can see, you're getting quite a different character already now, and the head is being changed. So there's quite a drastic change going on there. You can change the face as well. You know, you can make it more chubbier, the cheeks. You can then go ahead and change the brows as well. I don't know why that's coming up on that setting for. It's the face, isn't it? So you can do the jaw as well, bring that out a bit more. So yeah, there's not many morphs you can do with Custodia. So Sakura, which is a character, you can make it look more like her in terms of the cheeks and stuff. So there's a few morphs and stuff you can do, advanced morphs and stuff you can do in there. Obviously you can do more with the morphing as you purchase as well. As you can see, the character's looking quite different now, and that's just the morph side of it. So you know, you can do the eyes as well. So that's secure eyes, and you can see that's quite a drastic change there. The nose, again, you got a secure nose, and so again you can change that and make it look quite drastic as well. So that's just the morphs. You can actually give it more Asian nose as well if you wanted to, if that's what kind of character you want. You know, you can do that. So yeah, the character's looking rather like a monster now, but That's just some of the kind of things you can do with the morphs and the characters and the parameters and the surfaces. The parameters is just the basic controls of the character. It does have morphs in there combined, but because the options are overwhelming in there, it's probably just best to look at the basic parameters in there and then do all the morphing in the shapes category. Shaping is just more ideal that way. The posing I never really used, but it's just another way of just posing a character and stuff. I'm not going to really show that too much though. But yeah, you can do all sorts of facial expressions and stuff on here as well, so it's quite handy for that if you wanted to. So for example, left finger's grasp, you can make it look like she's grasping something. So I don't really use them kind of poses, and there we go. You can see that it looks a bit more. So you can change it. You can change a few poses in here. It's very powerful in that sense. I don't really mess around with the poses too much in here, but you can do it from here as well. So yeah, you can give it expressions, facial expressions in here. So you can make it look like she's sorry, for example. Can't really see it much there. Or distracted. No, it's not really showing properly on here. But anyway, these are the poses. You can go through them and see if you can find something that you like or something that might work for you. Surfaces, lighting, no. Cameras, no, I never touch any of them settings, to answer you. And that pretty much is it for the custom characters in DAZ Studio. There is a few other things you can do in DAZ Studio. It mainly involves importing stuff in. I may as well show you how to do that as well. Okay, so to import something into DAZ Studio, what you generally do is you need to get something that you've already created, obviously. Now, it's something you've created or something you've got from the internet and downloaded the rights for it. I would be very careful though, because a lot of the websites they only have royalty-free licenses, but if you're going to be selling a character, them licenses will be no good for you. So just bear in mind that if you're going to sell the actual character on a marketplace, you would need to have a proper license, not just a royalty-free one, but a proper all-exclusive license that lets you do that. So royalty-free ones would not give you the access to do that in most cases unless specified, like on generated photos that lets you sell the character as well. But that's different, but most websites would not let you do that with their license type, so just bear that in mind. There is a few you can use though, but just for reference purposes you can use them. I would not actually use them for selling your character though. So if you want to sell your character, you have to use a proper software, something like Marvelous Designer or Blender, to make the clothing or the hairstyles in them. And then I would stick to that. There's also another hair creating software. I will touch into that later on as I look into more software. I've forgotten the name at the moment though, but I will come back to that when I find out again. So yeah, you can use websites like CG Trader, and you can look for things like hair, for example. Now it comes up with a selection. Not all of these are royalty free. I'm just going to show you some free ones because just to show you that you can use these, but I would be careful because not all of them are royalty free. So for example, you can use something like that. Like that, for example, and this one is royalty free, but you can't sell it. That's the exception there, and it will tell you here clearly when you click on the license. It will tell you royalty free allows you to use without the need to pay royalties or other licenses, but it is this fees for multiple uses or volumes. Products published with this license may not be sold. See, so it cannot be given or assigned to another person, so you cannot sell it. So that's the drawback, but you can use it for showcasting stuff or anything like that. You can use it perfectly fine for that license. That's not a problem at all. That's not the hair I use though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the hair I used in Blender just to show you what we're getting at here. So this is not a perfect method by any means. I'm just quickly showing you how you can use Blender and other tools like Blender. If you don't like using Blender, you can use Autodesk, but that is a very expensive software. There's other softwares you can use well. The good thing about Blender is completely free, and it is a bit tricky to get used to. But to be honest with you, you will eventually get used to it if you invest more time in it. It's something that you can get used to if that's something you're interested in doing. That is. So Blender. So what we do is we want to get something into Blender that we've got from the internet, or something we've even created, even better. So I'm going to use something that I got from the internet, though I'm not that artistic yet. So I'm just going to go into import stuff here, which is the stuff I've got in CG Trader. And this is a test hair I've got, and this is an FBX file, right? So FBX file is absolutely fine in Blender, but it's not okay in DAZ Studio. Sometimes it can cause issues in DAZ Studio. Now here I can't really hide the character, but thankfully they already have clothing on, so that's not too much of an issue. Right, so I'm just gonna rotate this character. So when you see in Blender, if you never used Blender before, probably the best thing to do is to delete the camera when the light doesn't cause any confusion. So you just got the armature there. Now this is what how it comes in a character when you've created a new one in another software as well. So the armature is the actual skeleton of the actual character that you've created. It goes around the whole character, and it needs it for animations as well, and for rigging. So we don't need the armature in this particular case. What we do need to do, you need to make sure that everything's selected here, and then we need to rotate. That's the first thing we need to do. We need to get the character the right way up for a start. That's the first thing we need to do. Okay, so let me just attempt to do that on here now. So that's the grid. And if I just do a rotation, I know the arms look a bit weird. Don't worry about it too much. We're not using Blender to make anything artistic at the moment. We're just manipulating it to get the hair out of it at the moment. So just want a rough rotation. That might do actually. Okay, so now what we want to do is we open up armature here by left clicking. We want to get rid of everything that's not the hair, so the body, the eye exclusion, the tear, the teeth, the tongue, keep the hair mesh, get rid of the shorts, get rid of the strap top, and get rid of the underwear bottoms, right? So we want to get rid of all of that, okay? And now the trick of this is now we want to get rid of the armature. It looks like the hair's disappeared, but it's still here, right? So what we do now is we need to zoom out with the mouse with the by using the mouse middle wheel to zoom out. If you have the wheel on your mouse, you can use that. If not, the controls in Blender may be a bit different, so you might need the mouse with a wheel just to make it a bit easier to use. I'm not going to go over the controls here too much now. So here's the actual hair. With the mouse wheel you can just zoom in and out, it's very easy. Now to move the actual hair to the center of the map, we can press G. Okay, and when you press G, you can just left click and then left click on the place you want it to be selected in. So now that's more closer to the middle of the actual map. As you can see, the rotation is completely wrong. So if you click on the hair mesh again and then click on R to rotate it. Right, so just to bring it the right way up really. Right, so it can be a bit fiddly sometimes. If you press R and X, Y or Z, it rotates it to a certain coordinate. So I'm just pressing R and Y at the moment just to get the heights of it sorted out, and then R and Z is used to generally sort out the actual rotation of the actual hair itself, as you can see there. Right, so I think that's the right way up now. I think it's just the wrong way around. So R and Z, we want to flip it onto the other side really. Well, let's just do R in general. Let's just put it back on here. As I said, it's a bit tricky, the rotation in DAZ Studio. I can't right, so that's the back, and that's definitely the front of the hair. Okay, so right, so that's the actual hair. Now if I go into the actual selection here on the top, on the viewport shading, on this option here, you can see the hair's gone all purple. This is the true colour of the hair, and you can see that does not look good. Purple basically means it doesn't have a proper texture. So what we need to do here is go into the textures, and we need to basically import it in ourselves. So if I basically go into here, what we want to do now is we want to modify that. So what we do is we go into base color here, we go into image texture, and then we pick the file that the texture is in. Now all the hairs, they should have their own textures when you download them from the internet. If you don't have them, then you may need to pick another hairstyle, because it should always have the texture with it. So what we want to do is we want to go for, in this case we only have a choice of transparency map, so we want to go for not the metallic one, just the normal HDRP one. So if you click on open image there, and there we can see now the image is changed to a nice blue colour, and that's the actual true colour of the hair now. So we've got a proper texture on, because before it wasn't quite properly aligned onto the actual hair itself. So now we've got proper texture on the hair, right? So now we can import this into DAZ Studio now. So it's an FBX file, so all we need to do is export it as an OBJ file, right? There's a reason for this, because DAZ Studio doesn't always like the FBX file format, so make sure it's always OBJ. Okay, and then you need to go into desktop and save it somewhere. I'm just going to call it hair, to be honest with you, on your desktop. Right, and once that's done, it's saving for you, and then all you need to do then is open it up in DAZ Studio. So if you just pop in the character first, so make sure, very important, you go into solid bounding box, make sure that you put your figure in, the Genesis 8 female character as normal. So let's just put it in. Just a normal Genesis 8 basic female character. It's a female hair anyway. Right, so I'm only going to show the female hairs because I don't want to spend too much time with the male character. Same again, the process, it's just repeating it again. Right, so once we got that in, we need to make sure we can actually see the character. There we go. Well, the actual outline of the character, and put in the clothing. Right. Double click. And then may as well just give them hair as well very quickly, just so they've got something to go with as well. I'll just stick with that one on this occasion. Right, so now that's done all for us, so we need to go into texture shaded mode, and we should see the character is now on the map for us. Right, so now all we need to do is, well, we don't want the hair actually, because we're going to put in our own hair. So let's just get rid of the Anita hair now. What we're going to do now is we're going to import our own hair in. So all we do is we're going to File, Import, and then we find on the desktop where we're saving it. So that was called hair.obj, and this dialog box comes up when you import anything into DAZ Studio. And all we want to do here is we want to make sure it's on custom, not DAZ Studio and not Blender, because the settings aren't quite right for it. So keep it custom and make sure it's around 100%, and then click on accept. Right, now you'll think, where's the hair? I can't see it, and neither can I, right? So basically what's happened is it's somewhere on DAZ Studio. Now, as you can see, possibly straight away, the hair looks like she's got some kind of hat or something. It doesn't look like hair, does it? And that's an issue we're going to face here, because when you import something into DAZ Studio from some other source like CG Trade or Turbo Squid, the hair is not going to look right. It's going to look like something else, basically. So let's just try to move it up into the right position first. That could be possibly because of the actual hair itself and what it looked like in Blender, or it could be because of the actual converting it into the studio, which is an issue as well. Because when you pick these ready-made models on TurboSquid, not all of them are high quality, and some of them are very, very low quality. And because of that, the hair just looks terrible. So it's difficult getting a good quality hair from somewhere like that, unless you pay for the price. Obviously, that's the only way of really doing it. Unless you get lucky, because sometimes there might be some good choices out there. Right, so whenever you're moving something around in DAZ Studio like hair, you want to make sure that you're on the Parameters tab. It's very important that's on the Parameters tab, and you select the hair. Now, I don't know why it's that's why. Right, there we go. Okay, so then when you're on the Parameters tab, this is another use for it. You can move things up and down on the actual character, so you can change the character's clothing and mouse position and stuff on the actual character. Obviously, you don't want that to change though, but hair is not in the right place. So the Y translate generally makes it go up and down. So if we move this into the kind of right position, the Z translate kind of moves it left up and down, and the X translate moves it kind of left and right. So what we want to do is we want to kind of adjust it in a way where the hair fits the character. So let's just give that a quick try now. So right, at the moment it looks awful, and I think it's because of the rotation. So if I just rotate it a bit here, is it Y rotates or Z rotates? I think it's the Z one actually on this occasion. Yep, there we go. So that's the front of the hair that we can see there. What we need to do is make sure it's straight, like that, right? And then what you want to do then is you want to just rotate it like that, and then you just want to translate it on the X-axis again, and there we go. The hair is now coming onto the character slowly, as you can see. It's a very slow process, this. It's not a fast-winded one. So again, we try to pop it in. I think that Y rotation was a bit too much, actually. Yeah, so just straighten it out again. So the hair fits on, and then we just X translate again. Again, left click the mouse button and just drag it along on the slider until the position looks about okay. Now, as you can see, the hair is fitting the character now, but it doesn't look very good at all. Right, so let's just bring it down a bit until the hole starts appearing. There we go. Okay, so now that's fitted onto the character now quite nicely, I think. Let's just do the Z translate and just bring it back a bit so we can, there we go. So the back of the hair is fully visible. That's sort of important here. Right. And then what we want to do then, as you can see, is it's not quite right. Okay, so let's just bring it, we have to change the scale of the let's experiment first which one we need. We need the Y scale, not really the X scale either. The Z scale then. Yeah. Okay, now you just want to make it very subtle because you don't want to mess anything up here. And yeah, that's the hair on the character. Now obviously you can fiddle around with these Z translates and bring it more forward slightly. Just so it doesn't look so bold at the front. Something like that maybe might work for you. Yeah, so you just fiddle around until you've got something you like. Obviously the hair looks like a hat at the moment, it doesn't look much like a hair at all. at all. So yeah, you can see the fitting's quite good though. We've got the fitting quite right there. It fits on very nicely onto the character itself. That's the only problem is it's such a low quality hair that it's not able to produce an effective output out of it. But that's basically how you'd put in the hair on the actual character. You would just import it in. If you've got higher quality hair, by the way, it might look a bit better than that. But the idea is to make hair using the other tool that I'll look up for you later on and come back to the name later on, because I'm going to look at iClone later on and perfect techniques here, because iClone's better at doing certain things, so we'll look into that and we'll look at the clothing again as well. So yeah, that's how you'd get the hair and the clothing in that you want to import. So that's how you'd import new things into DAZ Studio. It's really quite simple. You want to make sure it's an OBJ file in most cases. Sometimes an FBX file can be accepted, but there's certain ways of making it work. Like if you put an FBX file in, you've got to make sure that everything in Blender is all grouped into one thing, because if you don't do that, an FBX file won't work very well in Blender. So just bear that in mind, because FBX files have different parts to them. An OBJ file is just one thing grouped together. That's why an OBJ file is works better in DAZ Studio, because of that simple fact. FBX file has certain groups and different parts of it, so that's why you always want to make sure you get an OBJ file out of it, because it's easier to work with, and in Blender it just comes out much more nicer. One thing that Blender doesn't do with that though, it doesn't do the textures properly, so maybe if I put in a texture again, let me just see what DAZ Studio has done with the texture here. So if I go into the surfaces, hair, alright, it's not done the texture, I don't think. So if I put it in ourselves, browse, and what we need to do is put in the actual texture for the hair. There we go, I think that's what he was already using, the blue colour as you can see. So yeah, that was the definitely right map that you're supposed to use for it. You can obviously change the colour of it, into your heart's content, but as you can see, this hair isn't really worth messing around with. This just looks terrible. And even in Blender it doesn't look that good, to be honest with you. Just looks like almost like a see-through object, so yeah, there's not many hair fibers on that, unfortunately. Okay, so that's just a demonstration of just one type of hair that you can put in and how you can fit it into DAZ Studio. And if you like that hair for whatever reason, you can save it as well as a full DAZ Studio character on the scene subset again. So if you go into File, Save As, and choose Scene Subset, that's one way of doing it. If you particularly like the hairstyle, like say you've made a really nice hairstyle and you really like it, you can also save it as something called a wearable preset. And wearable preset is basically clothing and hair, so you can use it for that purpose as well. If you like the hair that you've created, and that's basically it in DAZ Studio. That's as far as I've got into it anyway, in terms of actually what you can do with it and what you can't. Importing stuff. There'll be one other thing I'll be talking about later on, that'll be right near the end, and it'll just be simply about getting stuff from DAZ Studio into other things like iClone. That'll be kind of interesting, because DAZ Studio is good at one thing, and that's if you buy stuff on DAZ Studio store, if you have done for clothing and hair, it's actually quite useful for using them clothing and hair into iClone, and that's something that I'll be looking at a bit later on as well. How you can do this. So yeah, that just shows you the overview of DAZ Studio, what you can do in there. Then let's look at a list I've created in Notepad. I've got like a list just to make sure I've covered everything for you guys today. So yep, I've got the characters in, I've outputted the hair and the clothing, I've modified the hair colour, I've explained why you need to use Photoshop and the texture maps. I've showed you how to do the morphing, I've done the face morphs and changes, I've showed you about basic changes to the eyes and nose, I've showed you the hair morphs and Actually, I've not showed you that, but that's I've showed you how to change the clothing and morph it. I'll do that in a moment. Actually, put in the character from face transfer. I've done that. I've showed you how to change it, how to put the dials in, how to morph it, how to get more detail and stuff out of it. I've showed you how to save it with the scene subsect, how to make it into a Genesys but one character. So the only thing I've not really showed you is just how to change the hair and the clothing morphs. That's not really a big deal really. So basically, if I just put in my Genesys character I've already got on the desktop, right, and if I just go into here and just put in my Genesys 8.1 character, I may as well because I've created it now, and just left click and drag straight into DAZ Studio. Yes, so just like you can change the morphing on characters themselves, you can change it on the hair as well. So say for example, you've got the shaping tool here, and if you go into the actual hair, so not the actual character, if you go into the actual hair itself, just bear me a moment. Right, so that's the actual hair that the character's got, and you can actually modify settings on here, as you can see, to change the hair, and that's what we call the hair morph. Because you can control it, you can make it go up and down, you can control the length of it. You know, there's all sorts of things again you can do with the hair. You can go crazy and wacky with it, whilst you're spending your time, you know, sorting things out really. So yeah, that's just a quick demonstration of how to change the hair, and you can do a similar kind of thing with the clothing. Now the clothing is obviously attached to the Genesys 8 character, so what you need to do is actor. Right, the easiest way of doing the clothing, to be honest with you, is not to do it from the shaping. Go into parameters, and then make sure on here that you go into the actual dress, and then from there you can access them with the morph controls if they have any. Now in this case it doesn't actually seem to have any, so I can't really show you the morph settings on that. There's none for the dress. But yeah, that's how you do it. It will usually show up on the shaping though, and you can do it from there, or if not you can go to parameters and do it from the list itself. Clothing's not really much you can really morph in that sense, so unless you've got a very particular clothing, I don't seem to have many of them though. But yeah, that's how you change the hair and morph it as well. And that pretty much is it really. That covers all the topics on here that I was going to show you on how to do in DAZ Studio. And the only other thing you can do really with this is just export out into different formats and do things like that. So, okay then, so just one other thing then. I did actually manage to find a higher quality hair, then I could very quickly show you how this process can be improved for fitting it onto the actual character. So let me just get everything on here. Import FBX, and I'm going to go into my folder where it's been saving, just as before. And then I'm going to open up the hair file that I want. And this will have the character on there as well, which we'll get rid of in just a moment again. There we go. So what we have to do obviously is before we rotate the character up, same steps as I've taken before really. It's the same hair, but I've discovered how to get the textures working now. So that's that. Then we need to get rid of everything that's not a hair by selecting it and just pressing delete inside of Blender. left clicking and then deleting on the stuff that's not the hair. Okay, and then when we're left with just the hair, we click on the armature and we get rid of that, so now we're just left with the hair base. Now we need to locate where the hair base is, and there it is. Let's just pop it somewhere. Let's bring it down again. So I'm just using G and then Z, or just G in general, to move it over. And I just press the R for rotate, and then I just rotated it to get a better view of it. Now as you can see, it's still nowhere near there. Let's just bring it closer to the center for now. Okay, now what we can see here is it looks like a mess at the moment. But as you can see, the hair is actually on this time properly. So just bear with me a few moments. So that's the top of the hair. Okay, so it's at least the right way up now, so we can export that into our studio now. One thing that I did differently, the only thing different really, I extracted, so what I had in my folder here, right, so what I did was I literally extracted the FBM file here. So the RHO1 FBM file, once I extracted that, I was able to get hold of more textures, including the diffuse map. Right, so with that, Blender is quite intelligent, as in it automatically finds the right kind of texture, and in this case that does look good. If I just look at the base color here, you'll see it says diffuse. Perfect. And that's exactly what we want to use here. So it says, right, so that's what we want. So if I just export that out now, so I go into File, Export, and you can go for OBJ, or you can go for FBX, but OBJ will mean it'll be a better size to manage inside the Dev Studio. So let's go for OBJ. So it's easier to work with inside of DOS. Okay, and I'm just going to save it on the desktop and overwrite the existing hair file. Okay, with all that done, I go into here and I put my figure in. So again, I'm going to put it in solid bounding box. Genesis 8 female. Okay, and then we're just going to give her some quick clothing. So again, same as I've always been putting on. This dress will do. Right, yes, good. So, yep, that was what it selected. Right. Now we just want to put it into something like texture shading mode. And now we want to import that hair that we just put in. Import. If I go into desktop, it's the OBJ file, and I can choose the scale. That's why I prefer the OBJ. The FBX comes with its own scale that is completely messed up, so try to avoid the FBX if you can. The OBJ is much more easier to work with. And then once we have the hair, we can then just go into the parameters tab, and then Y translate just brings it up. Okay, and we just do a slight rotation on that, so because we did most of the work in Blender, it's not really much to do with the rotation at the moment, so let me just move it more. It's a natural position. Right. Okay. It's the slight Y rotate, I think. No, not Y. X rotate, sorry, yep. Slight X rotation. Just to straighten it out a bit. And then X translate to try and fit it on. And then we need to bring it back so it's the Z translate. Right, so let's just Y translates to bring it back up again slightly. As you can see, the hair is fitting on slowly. So then we have to do. Okay. Right, so just looks like maybe now we're almost ready to get the fitting here now. So there's no point getting it perfectly fitted just yet. Let me just go into the filament PBR. The reason why I say there's no point getting it perfect at the moment is because we're going to refit it in a moment. That's why, but as you can see, this is actually starting to look like hair now. So that is pretty impressive. Okay, and what we're going to do now is we're going to adjust this fitting to make it into a figure. Yes, I didn't show you this last time, but if you find a hair or clothing that you're happy with, you can do this. So what you do is you click on Edit, click on Object, and click on Rigging. And once you do that, you want to select the option for Convert Prop to Figure. So just go ahead and click on that, and then just stick with the normal rigging setting, and just make sure, just keep everything default. And as you'll notice, the hair will disappear again, and it will go to the bottom again. So you'll have to find the hair again. There it is, and you'll have to bring it back up. That's why I didn't want to make too many modifications with the hair just yet, because we have to refit it anyway. So let's just put that hair back up again. So again, it's the Y translates to bring it up, X translates, and Z translate to bring it closer. Right now, as you can see, even the rotation has messed up again, so we will have to re-rotate it again slightly. So X rotate, I think it was. Yes. It's X rotate. go. And if I just bring it X translates like so, and then Y translates, bring it up. And then let's just look at the back of the hair now. X translates. Z translates. And as you can see, the hair is almost on now. All we have to do is just scale it a bit to make it a bit more bigger, because it's not going to fit otherwise. So what we do is we just go into the X scale here, and we just increase this slightly. So then we get is more hair coming in. Right, and what we're doing here is we just want to make sure the back is fine and the front is fine. Okay, so we just want to do a bit more on that scale here. Right, now obviously we don't want to overdo it because otherwise the hair will look stupid. So we just want to make sure we get the right kind of amounts. And we're going to bring the hair back down again. Right, in a way so it doesn't look stupid again. So what I mean by that is it shouldn't be too high up on the character's head. You shouldn't see a reflection of the bald patch or anything on the character. At the moment, that's looking like quite a good fitting. It's just a bit big on the X-axis, I think. If I bring the X scale back down again, okay, X translate. Something like that, maybe. It doesn't have to be perfect, as long as we know it's the hair there. It's the kind of style we want to get out of it. And that's mostly all we're looking for here. Now, as you can see, it seems like it's not quite low enough. That's why I translate. Okay, so that's a bit better now. Right, that's a bit better. Now we just want to bring it forward a bit, so sort of like that. And then we want to fill in this patch at the bottom, the back, sorry. So let's try Y scale. No, sorry, not decrease it. Right, so that's not really helping, so let's put it back to what it was. Let's try the Z scale then. Sometimes you have to just fiddle with these settings until you can get the right combination, really. Right, sometimes the toolbars get in the way. Right, that's better. It solved whatever the problem was there. Right, so we just want to. Right, so it is in fact the Z scale. I don't want to. Right, so as you see, the Z scale also changes the. Right, so what we're going to have to do here is maybe a slight Y scale again. Okay, a bit more. Oh, sorry, not the Y scale, sorry, the X scale. Right. It's not even the X scale there. Right, so I'm just gonna pop that back into 100. Right, what we're gonna have to do is find a way of filling in that gap. There is a way, we just got to keep prodding along. If I change the Z scale, it'll change the height as well. That's one of the problems with the Z scale. As you can see, it's getting a bit of hair extra there. We don't really want that. I just bring the Y translate down. Okay, let's try doing the X and the Y translate. It's because the Z scale is too high. I can't really do that. Alright, so let's just bring the Y back up. Okay, so there's a bit of patch at the back. Right, so let me just do a right, and then just trying the Y translate again, because that looks like what we have to do here, because the back needs to be in its right place here. The front's not quite right, so what we need to do I think the Y scale is quite good there. Right, okay, that's good. Oh, sorry, did I decrease it? Okay, so I decreased it. Decreased it. Right. That's looking quite good now. There is a hole in the hair slightly, but in general it's actually done quite a good job there. Right, so say if we're happy with that hair and its hairstyle, and we want to keep that hair now, obviously hair can be a bit fidgety. It's all about the settings and getting it perfected for the fitting, really. It can be a bit of a tedious task though. So I'm just going to leave it like that for now. I'm going to go into the Scene tab. Now, one important thing we need to do before we do anything else with the hair, we'll try and save it, is we need to parent it onto the State female. As you can see, it's separate at the moment. So what we need to do is, just like before, we can either left click and drag onto that, or we can right click and parent it that way. I'm just going to left click and drag straight onto Genesis 8 female. And there we go. That now is a parent of the Genesis 8 female, which means it will move with that character. So that hair now is part of the character. That's very important when you're making a wearable asset. Okay, not to make sure that everything is also parented as well. Right, so after everything's been parented and everything's fitted in the kind of way you like it, and you've made everything into a figure, not an object, which it was before. Before it was an FBX or an OBJ. Now it's a proper figure that corresponds to the actual character. Okay, and that's what we're looking for here. And after you've got that, what you can do then is you can say File, Save As, and then we can say Scene Subset, just as a backup. So this is test. Right, really what we're looking for here is make sure everything's selected, including the hair. Brilliant. And click Accept. Right, now what we also want to do is we want to make this into a variable preset. Remember when I mentioned the variable presets? That's what we're going to do here, because this will mean then the character will come with its hair ready to go. Okay, well it will just come with the hair ready to go, not the character, just the hair. Just remember that. So that's a variable preset, and then we just save it again onto the desktop I will. I'm going to call that test hair fitted wearable. Okay, and save that as well. And now we don't want the eyelashes, we don't want the dress, we just want the hair. So just make sure only the hair is selected here and click accept. And that's done now. So now that hair will be usable on any other Genesis 8 character. So that's kind of interesting. So now say if we get rid of this character now, and let's just put this back into solid bounding box. Now watch how quickly we can get the hair back up now. If I go into Genesis 8 female, okay, remember we're saving the hair as a variable preset. Okay, so that's the advantage we have here. Right, so what we can do then is we can say locate where it's saving. Click on the test hair fitted variable DUF and then just click around where the hair is located on the character. And then after you've done that, obviously put in the suitable clothing. Wardrobe. I'm just going to put this dress back on. Right, and I'm going to go into texture shaded mode. And there we have it. The hair is automatically on the character. That is pretty awesome. As you can see, it's fitted on exactly pretty much like I left it. Nicely done. Okay, now that's just texture shaded mode. If you want to see in PBR mode, you can do that as well. And as you can see, that hair now belongs to any Genesis 8 character. So you can create a new character, put it on, and that hair is ready to go. So now that is a variable preset, so any character can wear it. So that's interesting. So now we've got all the way to the variable preset. We've seen the hair setting and how to configure it. I think that's about it. I just had to mention them 3 things because obviously we need to get a higher quality of hair. We need to be able to fit it on and convert it into a figure, and then we need to save it out as a variable. Yes, and of course there is one other thing I have not mentioned yet in DAZ Studio. You're probably wondering what kind of stuff you can actually produce in DAZ Studio. You've seen the capabilities of using the software and what kind of things you can do with it, but you've not seen any kind of output yet from DAZ Studio. So let's just have a quick look at what exactly you can output from DAZ Studio. Now, as I explained before, these are the views in DAZ Studio. You can change between them, and if you change it to say NVIDIA iRay or Filament PBR, you are going into a rendering mode. The rest of these modes aren't so much rendering. Texture shaded, you wouldn't really do rendering in texture shaded mode, it's too lower quality. But Filament PBR definitely, and NVIDIA iRay are the 2 high quality renders in DAZ Studio. Filament PBR basically means it's physical based rendering. Which is a powerful rendering tool that's also used by other engines such as Blender and I think Unreal Engine uses the same thing, and maybe even I think even iClone. So they all use some kind of physical based rendering. It's a popular rendering method used by many animation softwares. So that's one of the purposes for that powerful rendering. And NVIDIA iRay is a generic, is a unique thing for DAZ Studio. So it gives you more powerful rendering abilities, but just bear in mind, it does crash my computer, so I can't really show you any powerful NVIDIA iRay rendering, unfortunately. This laptop isn't quite up to scratch with the power of NVIDIA iRay, unfortunately. But I can definitely show you Filament PBR, and I will be showing you some of that in just a moment, because we're going to focus now on the output side of it. We've seen the input, as in the kind of things you can create with the software, you know, what you can do with it, but let's now try and get some output of the software and produce it on something else that we can actually view, such as an image or video. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to obviously start off with a blank character. So we're going to go into solid bounding box. Okay, now for this example I'm just going to use, like I've been doing before, Genesis 8 female to keep everything consistent. It's up to you what you want to use. This is just for my rendering example, really. Just waiting for it to load up. Right, so when it loads up, obviously you'll see the solid bounding box. And if you go into the wardrobe setting here, right, and then obviously let's put some clothing on. Right, and then let's just put a hairstyle on as well. If we go for something a bit more different this time, we'll go for this enemy style hairstyle, just so it looks a bit different, and you can tell it's different than everything else we've been doing so far. Right, so all we're going to do now is we're going to go back into texture shaded mode. Okay, and that hairstyle doesn't look too bad on here at all. It looks quite nice actually. Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to first animate this character, and then we're going to render it out to make an output out of it, such as an image or a video or something like that. Now I showed you briefly before that you can actually pose the character on these tabs here at the bottom, where you've got the parameters, the shaping, and you got the posing section there. So you can do a few tweaks in this. The posing tool is only as powerful as many poses as you have really. So if you haven't really purchased any, you won't have them options available in posing. But if you do, you can use some of them poses in here like you've seen before. So that's like browse, suspense, and you can fiddle around with these. These are just the basic poses that you can apply to a character. They're mainly for expressions though. Just bear in mind they specialise in facial expressions and things like that. So and basic gestures and stuff like that. Really, it doesn't really go much beyond that really. But that's the kind of poses you can do. So think of it just like being a pose that you do, and it's just basically facial expressions and some hand gestures and stuff like that. As you can see, can go quite extreme. But yeah, let's just put that back. Right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make this character do a bit of an animation there. She's smiling there as well now, so I'll keep it like that. Right, so we just want to make some animation out of this now. So the main way of doing animation in DAZ Studio can actually be a bit fiddly. What you need to do generally, you need to make sure the Genesis 8 female character is selected. Now, the trick to this is if you go over to the top here, top left, and you click this, the node selection tool, this will allow you to click a certain part of the body, like so. It's selected the left shoulder bend. Whenever you select a part of the body, what will happen in DAZ Studio is it will come up with this transform widget here, they call it. And basically with this you can rotate and you can transform the character's movement. So let me just show you an example of what happened if you just had the arm. As you can see, we're just simply moving it up and down here. You can do you can bend it in and out. There's so many things you can do with the animations. I am absolutely terrible at animating in DAZ Studio, so I won't go over the top with this, but I don't have very good control over it because it is quite tricky at times. But say for example you want to select more than one part of the body, well, as long as you're in this selection tool here at the top, it says Node Selection Tool, if you press Shift, I think it's Shift and then left click, oh no, not Shift, sorry, it must be Control click. If you press Control and left click, and there you go, yes, it's Control and left click. So when you press that, you can actually control two bones together. So there you're controlling the left shoulder bend and the left forearm bend. And now if you go into the rotate, you will actually have a different level of control. As you can see, it's actually a bit more, perhaps a bit more smoother. So you can do a bit more bends and a bit more crazier stuff now, a bit more naturally, because you've selected more of the part of the hand. So, the arm and the hand. So it's actually, well, the arm itself, you've selected the upper and the lower parts of the arms mainly. And that gives you much, much greater control, as you can see here. So you can do quite a lot with that now. Let's just undo that. Okay, and you can also control the hand if you want to do it at the same time. So you could say, okay, let's pause that. And there we go. Now the hand actually moves naturally as well with the arm, with the hand You can see that is very natural. It moves as if it's part of that body now. So that's quite good. And you can also, select the shoulder part as well. So you've got the full side of that arm now and that hand. But as you can see, it will cause a bit of collision on the clothing. But yeah, that gives you very high control now, as you can see. So you can start doing almost like fighting moves with that. So yeah, that's quite powerful. Anyway. So let's just undo that. That's just a demonstration of how DAZ Studio works with animation. So again, basic animation. Make sure you left click on this icon here at the top, and then you'd left click on one part of the body that you want to control, and then you press Control left click on the other parts you want to control. And once you're happy with your selection, then you can use this widget here, this rotation widget, to start manipulating the movements of the character's animation and start making something a bit unique with that. So that's the basic idea how animation works inside of DAZ Studio. It's quite the mechanics is quite simple, but it's actually quite fidgety at the same time. There is one other thing you can do. If you don't like doing it like that, you can also go into here and go into Window and Panes, and they have something on here called Power Pose. Power Pose. This basically is a more powerful posing animation, but it allows you to animate as well. So let's just have a look. Right, so Power Pose. So when you load it up, you will see this screen load up. Okay, what you need to do, you need to make sure that you've got the Genesis 8 character selected first. Right. Sorry, I populated the Power Pose on that. Let me just close it. No, actually keep it there, yeah. So I just moved the Power Pose menu just to there. It's actually easy to see on here anyway. So, okay, so, right, now as you can see the controls are here. Now it is a bit fidgety, it takes a bit of getting used to. Basically, I just got to remember how to do this now. So it looks like left click and left and right starts moving the character, as you can see. So it depends. Power Pose basically is almost like the mouse being moved across the body for you, and all you're doing then is just moving the mouse. Always make sure you're Genesis 8 female when you do that. So all you're doing is just left clicking and just right. So sorry, I'm just trying to make it work again. Right, obviously you can select part of it, and you can see you can move it around. I don't know what's happened with the can't seem to control it anymore with the left click on the mouse. I said I'm not very good at these Power Pose tool as such. You can also go up and down the left. Wow. Yeah, I just selected a part of the body without knowing it, and then with that, as you can see, you can animate the character and do some crazy stuff with it. It looks like what you have to do is you have to select a part of the body though, like you had to before. So you left click on one of the circles here, that's one of the bones. And then I think if you control and left click, shift and left click. No, it doesn't seem to let you control. I know I've done this in the past. Doesn't seem to let me control more than one thing together though. Okay, so right, so if I right click and then do left and right movement, then as you can see the character does actually move side to side, which it's supposed to. Okay? That's what it's said on here anyway. Right, so then if I click this, you can see if you right click and go up and down, it should actually bend the character. So right click, yeah, it does. So it looks like you just really select a point of the character and it just starts moving around. It's quite a powerful tool. Depends where you select on the body though, obviously, what happens. And if you left click and go up and down, it will bend again. Yeah, like so. Okay, so that's basically just using the controls here to kind of get the gist of it. As you can see, it's very powerful. This power pose tool. That's just with one bone, by the way. If I just select that bone there and then try to do a similar kind of thing with that. Yep, now as you can see it's only moving the hand obviously, so it's not as powerful that anymore. If I want to select multiple things, let's see if control click really does that though. So if I now okay, let me just control click some of the feet as well. I think what happens here is you I didn't see the feet. No, you see it's I don't think that's the right way. I don't think you put the pin onto them at all. So on the power pose, I don't think you can. If there is a way of doing it, I've not really figured it out yet. But if you select something like near the middle of the body, like near the chest of the body, you know, you can get some pretty powerful poses out of it, you've seen. So you can do the typical left click and do some quite powerful poses there. Obviously, it depends on your skill. The more better you are using this, obviously, the better you'll be at actually creating it. Now, you're probably thinking, why are we doing all this animation for? What we're exactly trying to get at? Well, we're going to make an animation scene now in a moment. It's not going to be very good because I'm not the best at creating animations inside the DAW Studio itself. But we're going to just see what we can actually do very quickly, like a few. It's like a frame animation. That's what DAW Studio is. That's one type of animation, and that's the one that comes included in DAW Studio. There's also Animate 2, but I'm not going to show you that. I'm just going to show you off the timeline. So when you're in DAW Studio, you will see the window at the bottom, and you just literally click on Timeline. It looks usually like that because it's minimized. So you go right to the bottom and click on Timeline. It expands the window for us. This is now how we create an animation inside the DAW Studio now. So I'm going to take off the Power Pose tool. I'm not very good at using this. Actually, I'll keep it on just in case we need it though. Just in case. Right, so. Here's our character. Let's start animating it. One way of doing animations in DAW Studio is you have to move this timeline, this yellow arrow, to different parts of the timeline. And basically what happens then is when you do an animation, it automatically creates a keyframe for you. If it doesn't make a keyframe, you can also right click, I think, and you can say create keys, like so. So then you can create a key, and that basically represents the animation movements. So you're showing to the computer that's where the animation starts and where that bit finishes and where the new bit of animation will start. That's basically what a key is. DAW Studio should automatically do that for you though, generally speaking, but we'll see how it goes along anyway. So now let's first whenever you do animation, always make sure you start at frame 0. And then what we're going to do is going to move the hands around, just move certain parts of their body of the character around. So I'm just going to make sure we've selected that cursor. Right, so select the hand. I'm going to do the hand and the arm, and may as well do the shoulder as well. I think I've already selected that. Okay, I'm going to do that one first, so I'm going to just move that in a... Say we just move it like that for a start, right? Then we move this cursor here, and I'm going to move it to frame 10. Okay, then we're going to move the other arm. So again, you left click on one of the parts, and you control click, like so, and then we just kind of just move it, right? Simple so far. And as you can see, Dance Studio automatically made the keyframe forwards. Then we go on to the next one, and that's frame 20. Now it looks like we're going to run out of frames here, so if we just go to the bottom here, where it says 30, we should be able to increase the value. Just bear with me a moment. Oh yes, here we are. Range from 0 to 30. If I just change that to 100, oh, it doesn't let me do that. It says maximum of 30. One second. Right, there we go. There we go. So we have to change the frames per second there to change that. Okay, so where are we now? So yep, so that was the first animation. That was the second animation. I don't know why that's gone all the way to frame 34. It's a bit of a mystery. Anyway, let's carry on, and let's say we do another animation right there. Right, so if I just check the sorry, control click. Right, so that's the top part of her. And let's just do a twist kind of movement there. Okay, and then that one we want to then move maybe this arm maybe back up. So what we do then is we go back. Animations in Dance Studio, they're all done all gradually, so you just move bit by bit and you create an animation in that way. So we move this hand back up, right? And then we go into this one, and we're going to move the other hand up as well. Now we're just going to do a bit of a right, so yep, and then we're just going to bring the feet up as well, may as well. Right, so we're just going to go into, we're going to need more frames again, so I've not really planned this at all. As you can see, I'm just doing it as I'm going along. Right, so I've just made a few more frames. It's not really enough that. Right, it's okay, we'll have to figure that out later on. Okay, let me just move that one. What we're going to do now is move the legs. Right, so you can see we're creating a bit of a dance, a movement here. All right, and then we're just going to simply move the top back up again. So we're just going to select the top of the character again. Not shift, sorry, control, not the hand. Control click on the parts. There we go, and then just move it back up again. And that should do it really. Okay, so now that's the animation created. So if I just play that now, what you'll notice is we've actually created an animation. So you can play back this timeline, and you can see the animation taking place. But also, let's just play that out now. Yeah, that looks actually quite nice. You can see everything is working as expected. It's made a nice little pose movement for us there. So yeah, that's I'm quite happy with that actually. That's quite nice. Right, so say if you're happy with the animation that you've created, then you're ready for the render really then, because all the render is just using what's on the keyframes here and making a video or an image out of it. So we're going to first make a video because that will take a bit longer obviously, and what we're going to do here is we're going to make sure that we go into render settings. So what we need to do is we need to go to the top here and look for the menu that says render settings. Very important this. Have a quick look at draw settings if you want. I don't think it's got anything important in there though. The one that we're looking for is the render settings. Okay, so here we go. So in here we need to look at all the settings in here. So the first thing is you need to pick whether you want active viewports or if you want it like a certain type of resolution for a certain type of device. I'm just going to keep it active viewports. It will basically be whatever shows here. No, actually, what I'll do is I'll actually change that to let me just think. HD maybe full HD. Yeah, I'll go for full. No, actually, I'll just go for normal HD here. Okay, so HD lower quality 720p is still quite a high resolution. That's I'll just go for that. And basically, when you do that, you'll see that the screen changes. The important thing here is to make sure that the character is still in the view, in that resolution box, okay? Because that's the window where the animation is going to appear. So if I just click play and make sure the character is in that box at all times, yep, that seems okay. Right, so that's going to be our resolution for the what do you call it, animation. Okay, so that's fine. Pixel size, yep. We're going to make a movie, right? And we're going to make sure that all our frames are included from 0 to 200. Okay, and we're going to call the name. I'm just going to call it test, to be honest with you. And then you go onto here, which is the movie path. You select the location by clicking on the folder, and then you. Oh yeah, sorry, I missed that. You missed the three. You select the three dots here. Directory, and then you choose where you want to save it, so desktop, and I'm just going to call it, well, you select the folder first, and we've already named it test. Okay, so yep, keep all that as it is. Now minimum update. Now you can change the minimum samples and maximum samples. That would increase quality, but I'm not going to do that. Rendering quality is on 1 at the moment. I'm sure I've missed out something here. Oh yes. Right, so we want to make sure. If I go back into render settings. Ah, here we are. Yes, there we are. That's what I was missing. At the top, sorry, I did miss that out completely. At the top it says Engine, and now it says NVIDIA iRay. Now that's going to be very powerful. I'm going to just go for 3D Delight here. 3D Delight. It's still a powerful engine, but at least it's less likely to crash my computer. So I'll go for 3D Delight. It's slightly less powerful, but it'll get the job done quite nicely for us. Okay, so I'm just gonna make sure that everything's okay on here now. And as you can see, when you click on 3D Light, you get less settings here now as well. All the minimum and maximum sample rate has all gone. It's much more simpler, the settings on here now. Again, we're just going to keep it very basic. We're just going to keep everything default here. And then once we're happy with the engine that we've selected 3D Light, and once we're happy with the resolution, and it's got everything on there, and it's a movie, and we're happy with the file path, then we can just go ahead and render it. And rendering does take a while, even on a lesser engine. It will take a while to do this, so just give it a few moments and I'll come back when it's done. Well, that did take a while, didn't it? So so I fast forwarded it for you now, so you don't have to watch all of that. So I'm just going to keep this on the standard codec. I don't really know. Well, actually, no. What I'll do is I'll go for full frames uncompressed. I don't want it to have any kind of compression on this one. I want it to be full quality. So yeah, I'm just gonna go for full frames uncompressed. I don't think it really matters too much. It's just going to make an AVI file out of it now, which is a movie file. And once it's created the AVI file, you can open it under using any video playing application you have. I use VLC Media Player. You know, you can use whatever application is on your device or whichever one you've installed. Okay, so that looks like it's rendered the output now. So if I have a look on my desktop, sorry, let's just look at it from here. What's the bits? Right, so if I look at it from here, and I will see somewhere, there it is, test.avi. Okay, and that's what we've created from DAW Studio now. So if I, yeah, there we go. It's a very as you can see, it's very fast animation, and the reason is because, you know, we've only made a very short video there. There's not many animations going on, but you can see is there what we've created. And so yeah, that's not bad at all. So that's what we've created in DAW Studio, just something very short and very simple. And now let's just go back onto the DAW Studio itself, and let's just make the active viewport again. Right, so we're just going to have a look at what this looks like in filament PBR, so the higher quality setting, and just have a look at what the actual screen looks like as we're playing this back. Right, so here we go, and then if I just click on play, yay, that looks quite nice, kind of nice, doesn't it? Yep, so that's a nice little animation there we've created. It looks quite nice, even in the filament PBR view. And she's smiling happily away as well, so that's nice. Right, so yeah, that's all good. Right, so that's all looking as expected. Right, so that's basically shows you how to do an animation. Now, obviously, rather than clicking here, you can also click here on the actual character, but you have to make sure you click on the actual bone, and this is where it can get a bit complicated, because if you look, there's nothing connected to the hip, and so you have to go onto the pelvis. And the hip, I don't even know if that bone is actually even on the character. Let me just have a look. It may be, it just doesn't show up as an error, that's all. Oh yes, it is, yeah, it is. It's not a very good one to control unless you're going to have them flying or something like that. But yeah, you can actually just use the hip like that by itself. The pelvis obviously will give you much more control, like so. So yeah, you can do that in DAW Studio as well. So you can just click on the scene menu, and just when you want genital state female, you can extend it out and go into hip, and then you go into pelvis, and you can keep extending it out however much you want to. And again, if you control click, you can actually control multiple parts of the bones. And as you can see there, you can start doing some really weird stuff going on there. Yes, so that's not. That's basically. You can also on this scene menu view, you can actually shift click as well. So you can either do control click or shift click on this actually. Both of them seem to work. So yeah. That's not too bad at all. And it's quite easy to do, you're just controlling the bones. It's just that you really, unless you know what you're really doing here, I wouldn't really use that, but obviously if you are comfortable using these, and you know which bones they correspond on the body and everything else, and you're comfortable using it, because you can control the thumbs on here as well, which is something you can't do very easily. So if I just click the right thumb, so, yep, right carpal, right index, right carpal 2, and right carpal 3, and right ring 3, and right carpal 4. Let me just see what I can do with that. So there we have it. We have a nice finger movement going on there. So if you look at that, that is extremely powerful. So we're just controlling the fingers on the character, and we can do some powerful animation just by doing that. That's very neat. You can only do that more easier though on the scene menu. It's not so easy to do when you're left clicking on this menu here. But this gives you greater control, like for things like fingers and toes. If you want to animate them as well, you can do that from here as well. So that's kind of interesting. So if you click on the, there we go. If you click on the foot, it just gets easier to click on the toe then, and you can click on the toe that way as well. And if you click on right toe, and then there you go, you can control each finger of the toe. So that's interesting as well, if you want to be able to do that. So you can say right small toe, select all the settings on that, and if I just change it now, we should see it moving. So we're very subtle, obviously. And there we have it. Can you see that? So let me just zoom in more. You can see the actual toe fingers moving. See? That's not too bad at all. Wow. So that's the power of the studio. You can actually control the fingers right down to the toes if you really wanted to. You just have to remember to go into the scene menu and do it directly from there, because it gives you greater control in here, but you have to be able to understand what you're doing and obviously comfortably able to manipulate it and use it to make your animations. But that's another good thing I wanted to show you, because obviously you want to make powerful animations. That's something to look into as well if you want to make it yourself. Talking about animations, so if you're not very comfortable making animations, DAZ Studio does have many tools you can use, such as Animate 2. This is something you have to buy though, so unless you've bought the actual product you can't really use this. But let me just quickly show you. There we go. She's doing like a ankle touch and point here now. So there she's doing a little animation sequence there. This is all automatic, by the way. All we're doing, we're just hovering over it. If you like the animation, you can left click on it, and it will actually go onto the, I think the what you can do is you can put it on a timeline as well. So it's on the timeline at the moment. If you go here, you can then go back onto Animate 2, and then you can say, I want this, right? And if you do that, oh. Right, okay, it's because I've got other animations going on as well. Right, so if I just click on 40 there, there is a trick to doing this. I've not really figured this out because I don't really use these animations. Let's say if you did, I think you have to left click. Can't put it onto the timeline. Yeah, you just put it onto that literally. Yeah, so it's a separate kind of animation, this, and then you'd have to figure out a way of baking this onto the actual animation. And so what you could do then. So I'm not really comfortable using this animation technique because I've not really used it. Yeah, it's another way of animating, but just bear in mind, unless you know how to bake these animations on here, they may not be very useful for you until you can figure that out. So that will be something worth looking into if you want to do that. You know, if you want to use that kind of animation style, then you can freely do it, but you need to understand how to actually populate it onto the you know, the main timeline here. Anyway, so that's just showing you how that works. You can also use other animation tools. Well, that's not the only ones. So let me just show you the other things that are available. I've just got like a list here, the things I've purchased. So another thing you can use is, we'll just go through it very quickly. GraphMate. GraphMate is another animating kind of style tool as well, and so is Keynotes. So if you like doing key animations, If you like doing key animations like I did on the timeline, that's called keyframe animations. If you like doing them kind of animations, you will like Keymates, and GraphMate is similar with a graphical interface though. And then there's other ones as well. Obviously, we looked at Power Pose. Obviously, you can do posing in the actual menu itself. There's also Puppeteer. I never tend to use that. And then there's other things like it doesn't show it here. No, it doesn't show it here, but there's also other plugins and tools such as Walkit, and they have other ones as well. So that's like walking animations it does for you automatically. So if you do want to do walking animations, you might want to purchase something like Walkit. It might give you a more easier way of doing walking animations and running animations. It's quite useful. I've used it. It's quite a useful tool. That. Other than that, the only other thing that you can do in DAZ Studio really, when it comes to animation and stuff, is lip syncing. So if you do like doing lip syncing, DAZ Studio does have something called AnyLip and AnyLip 2. Again, these are products you have to purchase, unfortunately. Once you have them products, you can do kind of lip syncing with it. I wouldn't recommend it really. It's not the best, but it does the kind of the job if that's what you want to do. Some basic lip syncing, it can handle that. So let me just quickly show you how that works. It's also got Mimic Live as well. That's like a live audio sync, so you can record it live with your own voice. I think I don't really use Mimic Live. But there is AnyLip. I've just completely forgotten how to use this now, so it's not really. Right, so this looks like its own voice here. Right, so the general state is selected. Right, so I said I don't really use the settings on here, so let me just try AnyLip 2 then. I don't usually use the lip syncing tools in DAZ Studio at all, right? And AnyLip 2 seems a bit more better. Right, so here we are. So on here we can just type in text. Hello, how are you? Right. Okay. And then you can.
Hello, how are you?
Okay, so it's done that, and then you have to go through the settings, and it's all about getting used to the settings. I've never really used this kind of tool in DAZ Studio. I was just showing you, and you just go through each of these basically and select. There's all sorts of settings here to do. And you really have to get used to how it works, I suppose. I'm not very good at this at all, so I can't really tell you how that works. I'm sorry about that. It's not one of my areas I've done in DAZ Studio. But yeah, there is AnyLip 2, and if you wanted to, you could also use something like Mimic Live. Again, it's something that I've not used. I don't do lip syncing in DAZ Studio at all, so I'm not really an expert in that. But again, if you did Mimic Live, you can extend the screen out to make it a bit bigger. And on here you can do, basically this is like live capturing. What it will do is it'll apply your speech onto the character, so it's kind of useful, this. So what you can see is start capturing. No configuration file. Do you want to use default? Hello. How are you? Can you see? It's lip syncing the character. What was it? Hang on a second. Hang on. Hello. How are you? She's moving ahead. The lips aren't moving. Right, so hello. How are you? Hello. How are you? Right, so it's just moving the head at the moment, and not much else seems. But you know, you can use this tool to mimic live the character and speech as well. Hello, how are you? Are you okay? Anyway, so I'll stop capturing that. Right, so it's still recording, the battery was just going low there. Right, so now let me just close that down. It's the Mimic Live. And let me just check. I don't think there's many other things, so that's basically I've showed you now. Kind of the way DAZ Studio works, and that's pretty much it. There's many other things you can do in DAZ Studio, of course. This is just a kind of a basic overview of it. As you can see here, you've got the top left, you've got the auxiliary viewport, which is basically that's the matching viewport as you see here on the screen, so you can also see it here as well. I always tend to keep it on scene for YouTube, just in case the character comes in unexpectedly. I don't want them to really show on that side of the screen either. And the environment I never really use, so that's just one other option there. Yep, and so that's the that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it really for the DAZ Studio animation side of it. There's many plugins and tools that you can pay for and use inside the DAZ Studio. I tend not to use them, and so that's the animation side. I'm going to bring this down. Basic. There we go. So we'll just drag that down. Right, so that's the timeline out of the way now. Just got to make sure there's nothing else I want to show you in DAZ Studio though. There is one other thing I just want to quickly explain. Because obviously I explained about the outputs they can produce in DAZ Studio with animations. I talked about rendering. Oh yeah, so let me just do a still image render as well. Whilst we're at this. Render settings, still images, very quick, very easy to do. All you do is I'll keep it on 3D light, it doesn't really matter, we're only doing images, right? So we're going to do a still image first, okay? And it's going to go onto the desktop as before. Again, click on the three dots, click on desktop, and we're just going to call it image. Select the folder on the desktop and then call it image, right? And that's pretty much it really. Images, very straightforward, not much really to do on them. Again, you can customize this so HD quality if you like. It's not HD quality, it's HD, yep, right. So I'm just gonna kind of move the character into there. Right, okay, so that's looking frame's a bit small, isn't it? Right, let's just, there we go. I liked fitting it in just in case make a difference. Right, so we've got it on the frame now. All we have to do then is if it's set to image, you just click on render. And this doesn't take quite as long because you can see the image is being populated, and there we have it. So what we'll do then if we click on save, it's just one image there. Okay, now say if you want to, for example, you want to go on a different frame on here. Where our animation is. Why is the animation not playing for? Okay, so it seems that we lost the animation. Okay, so right. Okay, not a problem. Let's just very quickly go into the character. And let's just do one very quick movement on the character itself. Right, so what we'll do is just move the hands or something. It doesn't really matter, I'm just doing this to demonstrate a different type of image, just so you can see that you can do images in that way as well. There we go. We'll have an image of our hands like that. Okay, and if I just go into render that, so it'll always show what's active on the timeline. So as you can see, that's what it's done there. And there we go, that's just an example of how rendering really works in this. So that's two images now. You can also make an image sequence. Image sequences are quite powerful actually. Let me just show you one of the features of an image. Never actually picked it on the timeline, it's a bit strange. Right, so okay, let me just right click on that. Create keys. Right, I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. Possibly because I'm on the render mode. No, I don't think so. Right. I want to show you an image sequence. I'll have to just leave it like that for now. But yeah, you can also make an image sequence if you wish to render it out. And then with image sequences, you can kind of have overlapping pictures, well, multiple images of that animation. It's quite powerful at doing this kind of thing. We just go into File and New. Raw settings. It's active viewport. Okay, and if I just go back into the smart content, solid bounding box. Right, so back on here, and then there we go. I don't know what happened last time. Really, it's a mystery, that one. Okay. Right, so we've got like a bit of an animation going on. Yeah. Again, just something very basic. And with that, we can now make an image sequence. If I go into render settings, and image series. Now we're going to make sure all the frames are included, like a video. What you need to do is call it a name, so this will be called images. Okay. And it's going to be in the desktop again, so click the folder and then the three dots. And then we're just going to save it onto the desktop, select folder. Okay, not many settings to pick, just like an image, but this is a special type of image, and you'll see what this actually does in a moment. So it's called images, and it's going to save it on the desktop. If I render it now, it's going to go through each frame and make an image out of it, like a video, but it's a moving image, so we'll see what happens. This time it was only 30 frames. Right, let's open it up then. Onto desktop. We will have 30 image files, and here they are. Okay, so it's images 00 to images 30. That's all our frames. Now you may want to make a new folder, and put all them 30 images in that new folder. I'm going to call it image series, and then put all 30 in there. Okay, so now all the images are in that folder now, and what we can look at now is we can go through all these pictures, and it will play like a video almost. Watch how it actually just moves. Can you see that? So basically an image series creates each frame of the timeline and puts it in as a moving video almost. And with that, you can actually put that character in on any scene you want to and create a background image of your choosing in something like Photoshop or anything like that, and you can put that character in the middle of a scene somewhere and it will actually look like it's almost part of the scene, just doing its animation. So you can make nice, all sorts of artistic stuff with that, as I'm sure you can imagine, using Photoshop. Because then in Photoshop what you can do, you can just open it up. Right, for this kind of task you need a nice image, like a background image, so let's go into and find a nice background image we can use. I use something called Pixabay. Right, so sorry about the wait there, I just forgot to hook up the internet there, so let's just go back up to Firefox. And let's go into Pixabay. Right, this is what I use for my royalty-free images. It's only one website. You can use Pixabay, you can use many other ones. It's completely up to yourself which one you use. Pexels is another one as well. I can't remember all of them, but there is a lot you can look into, and then all you want to do is just find a good royalty-free picture website. There's also Shutterstock, and they require subscription service. Yeah, let's just have a look for what we want to look at. So let's look at environment. Just want a nice background image really for this, just so we can have the character almost doing a little animation and pose thing going on there. That's quite a nice environment. I think I'll go for this one actually. So dawn time, yeah, and then the character can be somewhere around there doing their animation. So yeah, so this way we can make it look like a character is parts of the environments when they're actually not. It's a good way of fudging environments if you're not very good at, or not just if you want to make a quick scene really. And say if that studio doesn't quite have the tools you need, you could always do something like this as well. It works very nicely with image sequences, this. So we've got nature. So what we do is we create a new Photoshop first. Okay. Why is the cropping on? There we go. Right, now what I want to do is open up the download of the nature that we just created. It's a lovely little scene going on there. Marvellous. And all we want to do now is we're going to open up our images, but we're going to open it up as an image sequence. Make sure that you tick that, but before you do, you have to select them. So let's go into desktop, image series, right? And then what you need to do is select the first one, click image sequence, and then I think that's all you do. You just select the first one and click image sequence, and then you click open, and there we go. It says frame rate 30 frames per second. Okay, and if you look at this now, what we need to do is open up the timeline on Photoshop, which I've forgotten how to do now. Just have a look. Window. There we go. There's an option in window for timeline, and there we have it. So once we have a timeline opened, that is basically the animation for the video is created. But the difference is this is actually an image. Okay. Being put in as a video. Right, so what we can do with this now is we can copy this and we can paste it into anything else like so, and it works like an image, which is really handy. Okay, so say if you want to move this image, you can do. See, Photoshop treats that like an image, and the amazing thing about this is it's got an animation on this. So if we look at the video group, there we go, and there we have it. So we have to click on create video timeline on this separate document, and that character now is doing her animation in the middle of the trees, well, the middle of the big tree there, in the nice dawn light coming in. That is quite a nice environment. That you can zoom in on Photoshop. How do you do that again? Is it the... There we go. Magnifying glass, of course. Right, so then what we do then is if you click on play, and there it is. That is very nice. Okay. Right, so we're going to zoom out now. So there we go, 100%. And we can just change that to say 50, right? And that gets you back to pretty much what we were. So as you can see, Photoshop is very powerful. So if we click on the layer now, and click on the selection tool, you can still move the image around. Even though you've made a video out of it, you can still move the character. As long as you make sure you're in selection tool, you have full control over it, which is really cool. And if you click on play, the animation just takes place in a different location. So the character can just move around the scene in different places. It's really good. And you can only do this with an image series, by the way. A video, you cannot do this. So this shows you the power, really, of an image series. It really is something really cool for DAZ Studio to actually be able to output that. That's just the basics of an image sequence. You can imagine you can do some really good stuff with this now. You can create some text going on in the background. You can have all sorts of things going on. You can have other people walking around. You can have cars moving around. You know, you can do anything you can imagine. You can put into the scene, and you can make your own active scene out of absolutely nothing. And that's what DAZ Studio is really good at doing. You can very quickly populate a scene like this, and you can start moving things around. You can have animations and stuff, and you can make it come to life almost. So that's quite impressive. That's one of the features I really like about DAZ Studio. Sorry. So that's what you can do, and it's really good. It just makes an image come to life in very quickly. Okay. So other than that, obviously, DAZ Studio Obviously you can edit videos as well. The control you have over videos is very limited, so you have to use things like video editing software, and then you can populate it with other images and sound that way. But obviously videos are more difficult to manipulate in that way. It can be done, but image series is much easier, and you can manipulate each part of the content much more quicker as well. So I prefer image sequences when I want to do quite a heavy task on editing that way. But yeah, that's image sequences. Videos, obviously you can use tools like Wondershare, Filmora, which I use for video editing. Very useful video editor for Windows. If you're using Linux, you can use things like OpenShot, and there's other ones for Linux. I don't really use many on Linux, but I have used that one. And on Mac, I'm sure you can use the Mac tools as well, very similar. I don't have a Mac, so I can't really say which one's the best ones to use on that. But yeah, there's plenty of video editing softwares. You just got to really find one that you're comfortable using, and you can edit the video like it edits the image, but not with as much power. Obviously, you have to. With videos, you have to put in different layers and stuff, and it just gets a bit weird. When I mean layers, I mean different tracks. Sorry, not layers, tracks. And you like putting track 1, track 2, and then you have the audio track and subtitles track and what have you. And you have all these different tracks, and you just got to combine it together. You can do it as well if you want to edit a video and have some audio on it. Then you can do that as well. But yeah, that's the rendering side of it, and that's what you can do with an output. So as you can see, DAZ Studio is quite powerful. You can do videos and images, and you can then further tweak it with other software such as Photoshop and other editing softwares. The only other thing you can do in DAZ Studio, which I've actually showed you before in terms of the output, obviously this only applies if you're a content creator, and when I mean a content creator, I mean you're publishing stuff on the DAZ Studio website. If you are interested in doing stuff like that, you may obviously be saving things as variable presets, which is basically clothing, and as you've seen how powerful that is, it works for both clothing and hair. Character presets is basically for characters, and it only works for that type of character, like Genesis 8 or whatever you created a preset for. But again, you can get a character in very quickly and populate it on the scene. Very useful if you're selling stuff on the DAZ Studio place. It saves all of this as DUF files, which DAZ Studio uses on the website as well. Shaping presets is good if you have different shapes of the character, so different body shapes and stuff like that. You'll find a shaping preset is quite good for that, so you can make them look a bit more fatter, thinner. You can do all sorts of stuff with the body there. The pose preset is useful if you have multiple poses going on, and you can just pick between which pose you want to have on the character. The material preset is useful if you're into making different textures and different colours of different hairstyles and clothing. So you can have like one red hair, one green hair, one blue hair, etc. You can do all sorts of wacky stuff with that, and clothing again, you can change the colour of it as well. So that's what the material one for. I don't really use a shader preset, so I don't know what that's for. I don't really use any of these ones here. They're the main ones you'll be using really. So obviously scene, when you create the whole scene, and scene subset when you just want a character in there, the full clothing and everything, that's useful for that, as you've seen. So yeah, the scene subset, the variable, the character presets, the shaping and the pose and the materials, they're the main ones you'll be using, to be honest with you, and they'll create all the things you need in DAZ Studio for materials, colours, poses, shaping of the character, morphing, everything else will come under these settings, and you can just apply them. It'll be like a one-click apply, and you can just apply it onto the character as and when you want to. So that will be then when you're selling stuff onto the marketplace, and that's the output really. That's the main output that DAZ Studio does. It's really for content creators, for making stuff like characters and buildings and other props in DAZ Studio objects. You want to sell them on the marketplace, you can go ahead and pick one of them settings. Multiple settings if you want to change the material and stuff, and you can do cool stuff with that then, and that's basically how you'd output stuff in DAZ Studio. I don't think there's really much else to talk about really in terms of that. There is other features you can have in DAV Studio. I've not really touched upon it, such as rigging, because DAV Studio is actually capable of rigging doors and stuff. So say if you've created a door on DAV Studio and you want to rig it, you can go ahead and rig it, and you can open and close the door. You can have a window, for example. You can rig it to make it open and close, and you can do this with many different objects. I don't really like rigging in DAV Studio, but if obviously you are a content creator and using DAV Studio quite intensively, you may want to consider using it for your rigging purposes as well, because you can do powerful rigging in DAV Studio. You don't need really other software to do that, because DAV Studio is capable of doing that. So if you do want more help on that or anything else with DAV Studio, I would strongly recommend looking at a strong community on DAV Studio on YouTube. There's many YouTubers on DAV Studio. One of my favorite YouTubers, if I can quickly find him for you, on DAV Studio. Right, so we've got Vivaldi installed. I don't see if there's anything up at the moment. I'm just going to quickly go into YouTube. So here we are, YouTube. Right, so let me just see if I can. I don't want to sign into anything here. Right, so it's DAV Studio. I think it's called, that's the one, I remember it. It's called WP Guru. WP Guru. I can't remember what his actual name is. That's the YouTube channel name. So if you ever want to watch any good stuff on DAV Studio, any good channels on DAV Studio, I strongly recommend looking at this one here, WP Guru. It is some fantastic videos on DAV Studio.
That's number 4.16.
As you can see, that's just his video playing in the background. But yeah, that's his channel. He's called WP Guru, and he's really good for creating DAV Studio videos. He's not the only one though. I've seen some other channels that I can't remember the names of now. I'll have to do some searching and I will get there in the end. Then we just look for DAV Studio, and if I see the name of the video, I will recognise it, and I can recommend them to you then as well. That's the one. He's got a bit of a...
In today's video, we will be learning about kit bashing. Kit bashing is another...
Here's the video. So if you look at his videos as well on YouTube, I don't want to pronounce it because I don't want to say it wrong or anything, but if you look at his videos on YouTube on the screen at the moment, he's got some really good DAV Studio videos as well. He's quite an expert in DAV Studio in that sense, so he looks at things like rigging as well. So if you are interested in stuff like rigging and complicated animations, this person could be very useful for you for DAV Studio. He's quite a good YouTuber for DAV Studio in that sense. So again, you're covered in that sense. I don't really watch many of this person's videos, but again, he does some videos on DAV Studio as well. Again, I'm just going to quickly show you on YouTube just some channels that you can look at really. DAV Studio have their own YouTube videos. So I can't really tell you if they're good or not. Some of them are okay, but I've not really watched many of their videos. WP Guru. I think they were the main ones really. IT Roy, I've seen quite a few of his. He does some weird videos, some
welcome back everybody, IT Roy here again with another,
what
I hope, useful video.
So again, if you want to do images and put them into YouTube, onto DAV Studio,
I imagine this is going to be useful to a lot of folks right now as we face this horrible worldwide
yeah, so that's basically the way of finding out really more stuff you can do in DAV Studio, and I know there was plenty more things you can do in DAV Studio. I'm only covering the stuff that I've covered and I've used before in DAV Studio, but that is not even the beginning of its software. It's really, the more you look into it, the more comes out of it. So that's pretty much the end of DAV Studio. We're going to look at iClone next. So I'm hoping you're looking forward to that one, because iClone is when things get really interesting now. So this is just the beginning, and in iClone I've actually done a lot more stuff in iClone, so I can go over that stuff when I look at them next. So I look forward to seeing you next time.